Hello, friends. Welcome to Monday. I don't know what time of day it is for you when you're joining us from. This is Monday for me, Monday evening. It's gone 8:30 my time, and this is the History News Live. If you are watching along with me live, thank you so much for making the time. And if you are watching on the playback, thank you for making the time to do that too. Let's say some hellos. Hi, Steve. Welcome. Thank you for making the time to come down. Thank you, Michael. I hope it will not disappoint. Thank you very much. Hi, Misha. And Scarlett. Oh, ha, ha. Hello. Great surname. Hello, Hadrian. Thank you for coming down. And Elverta. It's wonderful to see you all. Thank you. And that makes me sound like Sherlock Holmes, which I will take that. I will enjoy that. Thank you very much. Yes, let's see what I can deduce from the things we should be talking about today. I have got a lot of news stories. So I'm going to try my best not to waffle and ramble too much and not to get too soapboxy, but I am still me. As per usual, we have got updates, we have got repatriation / decolonization news, we've got new news, we have got one ding dong, and we also have some events and exhibitions to speak about. As always, the news items that I will be looking at today are on the opera pinboard that is linked in the description box. My husband just brought me a cup of tea. Thank you so much. We are ready and raring to go. Also, you will notice in the description box as well, there is a list of the articles that are numbered, and you will see that I have, in a handy dandy fashion, the slide that I'm about to show will have numbers at the bottom of the slides that will correspond with the numbered list in the description box. It's almost like a plan is coming together slowly but surely. I again have so many people to thank for sending me articles. Once again, you have outdone yourselves because I have well over 50 slides. That is a fairly high number. So I am going to jump in. As per, we are going to start with the list of thank yous. So just seen Elverta, we love the soap. I mean, I also enjoy my soapbox. There will be a bit of soapboxing, trust and believe, because there is some shenanigans going on in Florida. Yeah, some stuff happening in Florida. That's what I'm going to say. We'll get there. So let me start with my thank yous. Thank you to Sarah, to Jessie, to Carve Felem, to Pretty Pick, to Beth, to Name Twin Cat, thank you, to Elverta, Yvonne, Lisa, Lana, or you might be Elena. Either way, thank you so much. Melissa, Robin, Verity, Alicia, Sarah, Mrs. Pretty's maid, Mary, and Jackie. Thank you ever so much. And Joseph, your name should be there. I don't know why it's not. I remember I definitely put it there. So I'm apologising not on the slide. Thank you to Joseph as well. That don't know what's happened there. I will make sure that doesn't happen again. But you are listed on the opera pinboard. If you sent me the article, that's another thing. I list who sent me the things, so you can see which ones I got from you. Apologies, don't know where that name's gone. How strange. Right, let's go. Updates first. We have got some news about Notre Dame. There has been a big leap forward in the situation there. We have got. Oh, yes, there we go. I'm sorry, I make it big on my little tablet, and it was being finickety. So we have got this story here. 4 years ago, as we know, Notre Dame burnt, and we all watched on in horror as that happened. And it did destroy much of it, and thus we have seen incredible archaeological finds happening in the ruins. There was at least some silver lining to the cloud, but we are also seeing the rebuilding project. And some of the rebuilding project all of the rebuilding project is being done using what we know to be original techniques. So there's a lot of experimental archaeology happening with this as well. And as we're seeing here, deep in the French countryside, teams of architects, engineers, and artisans have been hard at work. Carpenters have measured, cut, and chiselled centuries-old oak to rebuild the 300-foot spire to its original design, combining methods of the past with tools of today. This is being done in a workshop in eastern France, and they, we're being told, held a dress rehearsal, which is lovely, on July the 20th, to ensure that all of these carefully carved components in the spire the shaft of the spire would fit together, because I assume it'd be fairly embarrassing if you rocked up to Paris with a bunch of wood and you couldn't make the jigsaw work. So I can understand wanting a dress rehearsal. So this shaft of the spire is now complete. It's going to be taken to Paris in August, so from tomorrow onwards, and it's going to be put on the roof of the cathedral. It's expected that it's going to be, the spire is then going to be built until the end of the year. It's expected to be finished by the end of this year. We shall see. I have my own experience with contractors and building work, and sometimes they do run to plan. Other times, double the time and double the cost, but we'll see. So that's interesting. We are hopping into the next update, comes to us from Florida. Friends, I'm going to really control my to not swear, because I don't know how the Board of Education works. I know, for example, in the government that I experience, education is fairly hit and miss, and it's a political bargaining chip, and there is nonsense that goes on here, trust and believe. And what is happening we have a prime minister currently who is talking about stamping out what he calls Mickey Mouse degrees or low value degrees. He doesn't specify what he sees those as being, except for the fact they are ones that don't earn lots of income when you finish them. That tends to be the arts and humanities. So what that means is, when there's going to be things like you're looking for a history teacher for your secondary school, or indeed your primary school, or whatever else, there's going to be a shortage of those because you've told everybody that those are low value degrees. And across the board, history departments, literature departments, art history departments, etc., are facing massive cuts if they aren't being closed completely. And it is no shock to me that this is happening, because, and this is my soapbox moment, and I'm going to be brief, and you feel free to disagree with me. I'm not a political scientist, but I cannot help but see the fact that when you, at every level, devalue creative pursuits and the humanities, but let's start with creative pursuits, what you are telling people and what you are preventing people from doing, by preventing them from experimenting creatively, you are hampering their capacity to think outside of the box. It is about mechanizing and crushing the human spirit. When you devalue humanities-based subjects, philosophy, history, literature, what you are explicitly doing is you are preventing people or diminishing their capacity to read and think critically. And by that I mean to look at something that's presented to them with a, let's say, not rose-tinted spectacles, not to expect it on face value. It is about exploring, pretty pick, yeah, you just said this. It is about exploring thoughts and statements and sources for their factual basis, and also thinking about them as propaganda. Why might somebody be selling me this bill of goods? So by devaluing this stuff, you are making people more pliable and malleable. That is the way I view it. Feel free to disagree with me, but that's how I see it. So what we have here is Florida, and the state's Board of Education has approved new rules about how Black history is going to be taught in public schools. Critics are calling it a step backwards. Immediately, my spidey senses are going, a step backwards. Oh Lord. So the updated standards say that students should learn that. And this is, I'm going to just, I feel like I need to trigger warning this. What I'm about to say, that they are putting into this curriculum, these school standards, is objectively disgusting. And if topics of enslavement are upsetting and triggering to you, I would click away or mute me until I raise my hand. Mute me until I raise my hand, and that's when I will have stopped talking about this, because this is not okay. The student should learn that enslaved people, quote, develop skills that could be applied for their personal benefit. And in teaching about mob violence against Black residents, instructors should note that, quote, acts of violence perpetrated against and by African Americans. We are the Florida Education Association, the FEA, is the state's largest teaching union. They said that these standards are a disservice to Florida students and are a big step backwards for a state that has required teaching African American history since 1994. The standards are the latest development in an ongoing debate about how Black history should be taught in schools in Florida. Earlier this year, the Education Board rejected a new advanced placement high school course on African American studies, arguing that it lacked, quote, educational value. Meanwhile, the state legislature has passed a raft of new laws backed by Ron DeSantis, who contends that the measures remove, quote, woke indoctrination. There's a reason why I blocked the word woke in my comments. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. This is going to empower parents to raise mini racists, because that's how it sounds. These laws ban the teaching of critical race theory, which is an intellectual movement that examines the way policies and law perpetuate systemic racism. It forbids teachers from offering instructions that makes other students feel guilt because of actions committed by others in the past. Okay, I will now not be talking about enslavement in relation to this article. If a student feels guilt because of what they are being taught in school that was perpetrated by their ancestors, and in some classrooms, thinking about ages, their maybe grandparents, maybe great-grandparents, that is them centering themselves, and perhaps we should spend some time teaching those children to just remember that it's not always about them and that the world does not revolve around them. So this is objectively disgusting. I don't know what the answer is. I'm seeing some incredibly worrying things happening this side of the pond, and some conversations, and I genuinely don't know what the answer is. I'm going to keep, when these news items come up, I'm going to keep sharing them. I am going to keep shouting into the wind about how vile it is. I'm going to look for ways that I can be of assistance and helpful. Scarlett, this does not surprise me. Certainly it feels very much like in this country we might see a return of Section 28, which is essentially, it was a law against promoting alternative sexualities. That I grew up in I was educated at a time when Section 28 was in place. It was weird, particularly as I grew up in a family where my parents had lots of homosexual and lesbian friends. I spent a lot of time with them. I was frequently in their houses playing with their pets and generally messing about. So it was very odd to me that this was not something that was discussed. I didn't get it. In fact, I did tell my entire sewing circle. I went to one of those schools. Did tell my entire sewing circle in prep what a homosexual was and how they expressed their physical love. And because of Section 28, my mother got called up to school for that. So, and you know what else? It didn't mean that everybody in my school was heterosexual. Funnily enough, Section 28 was in place. Homosexuality was illegal. Guess what? Still gay people. Still loads of gay people. Odd that, isn't it? Yes, it was. It was called Section 28, and Section 28 was essentially a statement. It was the government had Section 28 in place, and Section 28 stated that you could not promote the gay lifestyle in schools. I don't know what that even means. I mean, I didn't think there were sign-up sheets. I didn't think there were sign-up sheets. I never noticed one for sexual orientation. And when I went to university, there was also no sign-up sheets. But equally, you know, I was also, you know, born into a world where, and I was born into a family where it was completely peculiar that this would be an issue. Exactly. All that banning those conversations and normalizing those conversations, particularly if somebody's being raised by bigots, is it means that if they happen to be gay or bi or asexual or whatever else on the gamut, all it does is make them feel weird. All it does is deny them the vocabulary to express their experience. That's all it does. Yeah, well, it's Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher said she didn't think that children should be, she didn't think it was right for young people to be told that they had the inalienable right to be gay, because Margaret Thatcher. No, there's no way I can say those words without a swear word. I can't. I can't. I don't know how to. I don't like her, Maggie Milk Thief. If I know it's the worst of what she did. And Paige, you are also 100% correct. I was fully a Timmy. My mother did get called up to school a number of times when I was in primary school because I knew too much. I did, yeah. And I would share that knowledge. I felt I was a teacher even then. And when those teachings also came to four-letter expletives and what those words meant, trust and believe, I expressed them. Yeah, 100%. That's it. It certainly, and the kind of the rhetoric and the fear mongering is to me almost an identical blueprint to what was done mostly to gay men, and the kind of language around gay men as somehow predatory. It's the playbook is the same, and I just wonder. I wonder who's funding. Well, I know who's funding it. It's not going to stop at the margins. If you think it is, no. If when you start questioning somebody's right to exist in their body, it doesn't just stop with 1% of the population. And if anyone thinks it did, yeah. Worrying times. Let's hop to an update that's slightly less head-splittingly awful, shall we? We're going to go back to some nonsense, but let's hop it in. Salisbury, a dig that has produced the richest finds of the year so far. I talked about this project a while ago. Don't ask me to quote what month. I've lost track, but a while ago. This is taking place on Salisbury Plain, and it's interesting. This dig interested me the first time because involved in it are military veterans, and they have been excavating this site, and they claim to have found the richest grave found this year. I mean, I love the fact that there's like a league table. Well, who got the best grave of 2023? Best grave, best in show. I love that for them. So some of these items that have been at this burial site are thought to be 1,400 years old. This dig is run by the Defence Infrastructure Organisation with the help of Wessex Archaeology, and the area is known as Avon Camp. It's called Operation Nightingale, and it's in part done, as well as the archaeological evidence, it's also done to promote the health and well-being of military vets. So wounded, sick, and injured service personnel and veterans take part in these digs. And additionally, this time this group has been joined by the Army Widows Association. The head archaeologist, Mr. Osgood, said, quote, "This site has provided some incredible archaeology and has allowed us to gain a real understanding of what life was like for people living on this land in the 7th century." He goes further to say the benefits for the veterans who attend these digs are incredible. They return again and again for the experience and kinship. And this year we are delighted to be joined by Army Widows. There is something about digging in a hole in the ground and connecting with the moment to moment experience that is archaeology that has proven to be very healing. And that is, I think, what an incredible way to use archaeology. There have been previous digs at this 7th century burial area taking place in 2021 and 2022, which yielded Roman coins, bronze and silver discs, and a necklace made of glass beads. The earlier digs uncovered around 26 burials in 22 graves, and more puzzle pieces are coming together. Phil Andrews from Wessex Archaeology said, "The aim in our final year of excavation at Avon Camp is to gain a full picture of this remarkable Anglo-Saxon cemetery and to add our understanding of rare burial enclosures we have found evidence of." So how fascinating. And I wonder then, if this is the last year of digging at this Avon camp, is this project, Operation Nightingale, maybe it be renamed, going to work elsewhere? Because I think what a fabulous way to use archaeology as a tool in many ways to help people. Just going to see where we... I've seen some... Just going back to see what happened, Hadrian. Oh, Hadrian. I am sorry. And I hope that I'm sorry that you are away from live far from your family. I do hope that you found a family of choice that you feel safe with. Thinking of you. This is a long article that is worth a look. It will, if you're anything like me, give you the kind of rage that makes your retinas have their own pulse. Anyone experience that? Just me? Maybe I should see a doctor about my blood pressure, because when I get really angry, I feel like my retinas are wired for base, but the base is my own blood pressure. How the ultra wealthy use private foundations to bank millions in tax deductions while giving the public little in return. Basically, these are your own private museum, and it's a nice little tax loophole where you can donate art, but not let anybody, any of the pros like my good self actually look at it with their dirty poor eyes. No, only you and your richy rich friends get to see it. So have a little look at what's going on there and the tax breaks that are available. If we need more proof that we need to eat the rich. Unbelievable, the stuff that is being get away with. And when governments try and press this notion that people are benefits cheats, if we just stop this, it wouldn't matter. Oh, fear, the rage. It gives me the rage. A lot of things give me the rage, to be very honest. Oh, that's jumped. Our final update before we move on to some repatriation news, and trust and believe the fury is going to come in there hard and fast. This is an interesting question. Mummies at the museum, should we still be displaying human remains in Aotearoa? And there was also an article on the Muta Museum and what's happening. And I believe I've got that later on the slideshow. I sit in a position where I think that human remains and the exploration of human remains in certain contexts, the study of them, the non-invasive study of them, has a place within our historical and scientific understanding. I do not, and you feel free to disagree with me, I do not believe that human remains should ever be on display in public spaces for public consumption. And I'm taking that from bog bodies, pharaohs, body worlds, whatever it is. I don't think that human remains should be displayed for the public. It's just the way I feel. We could quite easily have casts of human remains. I think that's just the way, for me, that's the way it should be. And you feel free to disagree. That's fine. In Aotearoa, we have this story about a 3,000-year-old mummy, or rather mummified remains. We are talking about ancient Egyptian here. The remains of a woman who lived in ancient Egypt between 850 and 875 BCE. She's been in Aotearoa since 1855, and she is currently in the museum's Ancient World Gallery, open to the public to learn about her culture's attitude and rituals around death. And look, these studies, this understanding is, I believe, absolutely vital. They need to the exploration of this stuff needs to be in museums. I don't think that the remains need to be on display at the same time. A few floors away, a temperature-controlled room full of the remains of ancestors long gone who won't be on display like she is, because communities, we hear Auckland Museum's got holds several hundred groupings of human remains, mostly Maori, ancestors who were robbed from their resting place in the 1800s for science or curiosity. This museum is now working to get each one of them home. 30 years ago, researchers ordered the collection and removed human remains from display. So there's a knowledge there, isn't there? Legally, the museum doesn't even own them anymore, but it's keeping them safe in a room with limited access. David Reeves, who is the Director of Collections and Research and the interim chief executive of the museum, said that there are ongoing discussions into the repatriations of the remains, but said that it's too soon to get into details. He said the work is deeply sensitive, every case is unique, but foundational are deep conversations with the communities from whom the remains originated. The majority of the remains still in the museum belong to Maori, and about 5% were from overseas ancestors. And from the rest of this article, it's definitely worth checking it out. But from the rest of this article, they are talking about how you approach repatriation and the choice they have made to wait until they are asked to repatriate rather than offering to do the repatriation. And I think it works in a couple of ways. First and foremost, you have to figure out what community the set of remains belong to. That is expensive and time consuming. So I can see why a museum wouldn't necessarily want to put the down payment on that, so to speak, if it's possible that when they turn around and go, oh, by the way, this is a grandmother from your community, and then that community, that nation says, we haven't got space, we can't take them, it's not safe, we don't want them, or we don't recognize your research, whatever it may be. So I understand waiting to be asked before repatriation, because they also talk about not wanting to put that on a community, saying to a community who may or may not have limited funds or limited places to store incredibly delicate remains, may not have access to the appropriate ceremonial burial grounds anymore, saying to that community, we have an ancestor of yours, take them back, potentially puts unnecessary strain and stress upon that community. I can sort of see that. So it's definitely worth reading this article because it talks about the complexities of it, and it's a very interesting read for us who are interested in repatriation. I agree. I think as things sit behind glass, I think that also there is a lot. I think we really need to explore how we do museums and to engage with sometimes less is more. The notion that galleries would sit empty if we repatriated stuff, I would argue that in certain cases, particularly in old style galleries, they are overly full and sometimes displaying not human remains, but displaying one or two of the best examples of something rather than 50, one or two of the best examples, and detailing on the audio guide or in the room guide or on the text around it, detailing how many of these finds have been made, I think gives people a chance to actually really focus on what's in front of them. When there is just this gluttony of things to look at, I don't, I think people, I certainly find that sometimes you miss things and it becomes oversaturated. No, I don't think they're assuming that communities are going to struggle with homing them. I think that they are saying that we are going to wait till they approach us for a number of reasons because they may want to do their own scientific investigation. We don't necessarily want to do a analysis of who these people might be in a way that might be offensive or cause degradation or any number of things. So without the appropriate cultural sensitivity, I can understand, I can give a degree of grace and say, I get waiting until you are asked. However, the flip side of that is, and I'm not saying that this museum, the Auckland Museum, isn't doing this, but some certainly are. The flip side of that is, if you are saying we're going to wait till we're asked, you need to have your catalogue fully available and digitized and online with high resolution photographs and full descriptions as best you can of what is there, because people can't ask if they don't know you've got it. So that is my caveat to that. And I'm in no way saying that's what Auckland's doing, but there certainly are museums that are doing it. Talking about stuff that should go back, we've heard about this lady quite a bit. She's popped up, Shelby White. She looks like it's someone's nana. She's allegedly getting away with it. She's getting away with looting. So she is a major collector of antiquities and a benefactor of the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Them again. She's a Met trustee. Her husband was Leon Levy, and their names hang over the Greek and Roman art galleries at the museum on Fifth Avenue. This week, the New York Times identified not Betty White, wrong one. She's a wonder. Shelby White. Take Betty White's name out of my mouth in that context. I apologize immediately. Shelby White was identified by the New York Times as having had 71 looted artifacts removed from her home in the past 2 years. Once again, we've got our buddy, Alvin Bragg. 29 antiquities have been returned from White's collection to Greece, 12 have gone to Turkey, 4 to Iraq, 2 to China, and 1 to Yemen. So it's a veritable smorgasbord of other people's cultural artifacts. Well done. Breathe. One item retrieved from the Met and returned, a Chinese funerary artifact, was still caked with dirt and in its crate. Cool. This investigation concluded it was started off as a dawn search of White's Upper East Side apartment, and Alvin Bragg said that 89 antiquities with a value of $69 million originating from 10 countries had been seized. This is where it gets interesting. It is not suggested that White, aged 84, she's a poor old lady, or her husband knowingly bought stolen antiquities. If you can drop the better part of whatever makes it to $69 million without being darn sure of where stuff comes from, because you're going to make sure it's not a fake. But it's just what, lackadaisical? So how much of their stuff is fake? Huh? In March, Bragg's office said it, quote, thanked Shelby White for her assistance and cooperation with our investigation. She's got them good lawyers, allegedly. The couple's collecting has been described as naive or careless. Oh, boo-boo. Peter Chavkin, White's lawyer, I don't know, I'm going to have to research him. He must be goody good. This is all alleged because clearly this is. I've also linked the New York Post article, but that felt more potentially libelous. And I think that UK libel laws are spicier than US libel laws. So I've taken the Guardian article because I feel like if they've printed it, they've had it checked by our lawyers in this country. So I got a bit, but yeah, naive or careless. White's lawyer said in a statement to The Guardian that White and Levy, that's her husband, quote, acquired objects in good faith at public auction and from dealers they believed to be reputable. And from the outset of their collecting, the couple sought to share their treasures with the public, not loaning objects to museums, not the museums where in the nations where it came from. No. Okay. And publishing on their collection extensively, which I'm sure tax breaks and money for them. When provenance investigations had taken place, the attorney said, quote, it has always been Miss White's policy to cooperate fully with these authorities. Of course it has. If an item in her collection was shown to have been wrongfully taken by others, Miss White has expeditiously and voluntarily returned it to its rightful place of origin. Nevertheless, she has been systematically funding the economy that has made the theft take place in the first place. In a statement, DA Bragg said, we will not allow New York City to be a safe harbour for stolen cultural artefacts. Correct. My husband's just told me no slander. We can't afford the legal fees. Well, I don't know what galleries in the Met. I don't know how much the Met is pay per view, but how much of the items they loaned to the Met were in exhibitions that you had to pay to see, and how much of that profit then went back into Miss Shelby White's pocket. Dorothy, I am planning when I am older, I am planning to be disgraceful. In my misspent youth, when I used to do stand-up comedy, that's a story for another day. But when I used to do stand-up comedy, I made it my business to go in little kind of like cutesy baby doll dresses. Like I wanted to look like one of those kids from the sisters from The Shining. And I would make sure that I would talk about the most depraved things on stage. And it was the shock value of looking like a sweet little cutesy wootsy. Because I started doing stand-up. I started writing stand-up at like 15. So I'd be cute little cutesy wootsy. But I would just come up with unbridled filth. I'm going to be that as an old lady. I'm going to be doing that. I mean, I'm already tattooed, but you can't see those because I've got a tramp stamp. That was 15. I was 15. Misspent youth. Aurora, if the Met, you just pay an entry fee. I don't know, because in the UK, we have, so for example, the British Museum is free to enter. They ask for donations. But in exhibitions where they've borrowed a bunch of stuff, you will pay to enter the exhibition space. And I think some of the Met exhibitions work the same way. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's how it works over here. So I was just wondering, either way, if you're loaning stuff, do you get a cut of that? Right. So, according to Bragg's office, I've just thrown cat amongst the pigeons with the stand-up fact. Yes. According to Bragg's office, since early 2022, an antiquities traffic unit has repatriated 950 antiquities to 17 countries. We've got our other friend, Matthew Bogdanos, retired US Marine Corps. I would just love to have tea with Bogdanos and Bragg, which sounds like an incredible TV show. That's it. Yeah, either way, that's So the Met does have an admission fee, and you don't get a cut, but you do get a big tax cut, which we talked about. You loan your art out, and it's a tax write-off. This is where the enjoyment comes from, isn't it? This is where the enjoyment comes from. It's because when you already have more money than God and Satan combined, why not try and fleece other taxpayers for more? Bogdanos and Bragg, this fall on HBO. Someone's like rolling over the bonnet of a car. Everyone's in flares. There's like loads of leather involved. That's just, I'll think about that later. There are no videos that I know of me doing stand-up. Thank the Lord. But yes, I did that, and I also used to do improv comedy as well. I was part of an improv comedy troupe. It was, I mean, once upon a time I was going hard. I was going to be a performer. That was going to be the job. And then I thought to myself, at the end of my BA, I was like, do I go to drama school and become the next Kathy Burke, or do I do a master's, an academic master's in Shakespeare and early modern literature and culture, where obviously there's going to be loads and loads of job security because I was a fool. I was a fool. But no, I'm happy I did. I'm happy I went down the academic route because that's what's put me here. And I still get to do performance when I get to put on my period costumes and go and do interpretation work. So it's all worked out in a kind of circuitous route, one way or another. So Bogdanos says they'd say about people getting this stuff. They'd say, "Oh, it's a little bit dodgy, but who cares? Nobody's looking." But people are now looking. Yes, we are. Yes, we are, Shelby. We are now looking, and they're saying it's not worth it. So hopefully, the more attention we bring to stuff like this, the less there's going to be a market for this stuff, because you're going to go around somebody's house. I mean, I'm not going to go around their house because they wouldn't allow a filthy proletariat person like me to come into their, I assume, thick white shag piled carpet. I don't know how the rich live. They're not going to let me come in there because I might, breathe some paw near them. But yeah, so I'm never going to know what's in their house. But I'm assuming that at least some of their friends might have to care a bit, maybe, and go around and be like, "Hang on, where'd you get that?" It's going to be like wearing fur. That for the most part, people are going to be like, this is no longer fashionable because everybody thinks it's a little bit no. Oh, then of course you get the conversation about what about antique fur, and that's a conversation for another day, I think. So he said, people who have wings of museums named after them aren't accustomed to being handcuffed, and that has an impact. Matthew, paint me like one of your French girls. I love it. Museum director Max Hollein said it's incumbent upon the Met to engage more intensively and proactively in examining certain areas of our collection and to increase the resources we dedicate to this ongoing crucial work. It's about time. It's about time. We are told that establishing the provenance of ancient antiquities can be a difficult process, especially when they have been dug out of the ground illegally and stolen, particularly if it's done under a cover of a conflict and thus a humanitarian crisis. That's even harder to find out where it's come from. I support this message. When I make merch, shall that be some of it? Handcuff the rich, because eat the rich. I mean, I feel like they'd be gristly, but shall we handcuff the rich? Should that be? Or maybe they'd enjoy it. I mean, it's hard enough trying to establish the provenance of a Picasso or a Matisse, says Charles Stuckey, an art scholar who's worked as a curator in major US museums. So when you get back to archaeological treasures, there's extremely little to go on. Stuckey said the inflation of the value of such objects should not be overlooked. Quote, $5,000 items are now worth multi-millions, so it's worth the time of lawyers and police to be involved. Stuckey also pointed to the cost that large art institutions carry when storing, handling, and collating vast troves of art that in many cases may never go on display. By returning artifacts, Stuckey said museums are able to negotiate a more favourable relationship with the receiving party, which may let museums borrow items in return, which is what I have been saying for ages. The British Museum's reticence to repatriate is going to bite them eventually, because the grosser that everyone realizes this denial of repatriation, the less other museums. I mean, why on earth would the Parthenon Museum want to engage with the British Museum? There's going to be no quid pro quo. It's always going to be a quid pro no. It's understandable that museums would want to take the high road and not fight on the losing side. You would think, all things considered, this is the best way to stay in the game. I 100% agree. Manhattan District Attorney. Oh, why is it jumping? Don't jump. I don't like it when it does that. Manhattan Attorney's Office returns 2 looted statues to Libya from the collection of a disgraced former art dealer. We've heard about this name before as well. Robin Symes. These artifacts are valued at a total of $1.26 million. They have changed hands in a repatriation ceremony. And here we can see a female bust. This is one of the restituted Libyan artifacts. The Manhattan DA's office has announced the return of 2 of these statues to their rightful home in Libya. Apologies. The artifacts, a marble face of a Ptolemaic queen and female bust, as pictured here, says were stolen from the ancient city of Cyrene, which is near modern-day Shahat, smuggled out by notorious British art trafficker Robin Symes, whose storied role as a liaison for antiquities smuggling networks across the world spans multiple decades and jurisdictions. Symes had acquired the 2 sculptures for his personal collection, hiding them in a New York storage unit for more than 20 years. Oh, my husband just texted me saying he's watching. Hello. He said, Pretty Pick asked if art theft can be a war crime. According to Interpol, yes, it can. Crimes against cultural heritage do not just strike objects. The destruction of heritage is linked to persecution of individuals and communities on cultural grounds. This can also represent a security and stability issue, a war crime. Well then, ding-a-ling. Let's do that, shall we? Let's extradite them for war crimes. Let's do it. I support that message. During recent excavations in Libya, archaeologists discovered what they believe to be the torso originally belonging to female bust in a tomb. Quote, it's shameful these beautiful pieces were stored away for decades by a convicted trafficker, said Alvin Bragg, hero, in a statement. Cyrene has faced significant looting, but thanks to the work of our antiquities trafficking unit and partners at Homeland Security, we have now returned several pieces from this ancient city back to the people of Libya. We continue to have ongoing investigations into stolen Libyan artifacts and look forward to more repatriation ceremonies in the future. Manhattan DA's office has repatriated 5 antiquities to Libya, valued at nearly $3 million since 2022. Here's a great one here. During Bragg's tenure, the Antiquities Trafficking Unit has returned more than, and I'm going to say this number slowly and clearly, 2,475 pieces to 24 countries, valued collectively at more than $235 million. Let's be clear. When we are talking about illicit trading networks, for whatever substance, object, or anything else is being moved, bought, and sold, when the trading network is illicit, when it is a criminal enterprise, the profits from this are funding very bad people who do very bad things and cause real world harm, both in in their own countries and across the world. This is funding that without a shadow of a doubt. 84-year-old Symes is responsible for countless sales of looted artifacts to private collectors and institutions worldwide. The professional downfall began in the 2000s with acid conflicts with the family of his late partner, Christo Muckalades. It was the 2016 raid of his storage unit at Geneva Freeport in Switzerland that introduced the public at large to a massive trove of 17,000 looted Roman and Etruscan artifacts. Early this summer, 750 artifacts, more than half of which hailed from Neolithic or Byzantine eras, were repatriated to Italy following a lengthy legal battle with Symes. Husband or chat, can someone please Google, is Symes currently behind bars? We're looking for Robin Symes. Tell me this one's in bracelets. I mean, even club fed. Please, I beg. Right, we're going to hop on to another repatriation while somebody finds that out for me. Hive mind, go to work. Missing for decades, a stolen 15th century letter from Christopher Columbus is heading home to Italy. This feels weird to me. Like, I'm all for repatriation, but at the same time, the fact that it's in the United States, that's where this stolen letter was. I mean, turnabout is fair play. Stolen land, stolen letter. But I suppose it's probably not being housed by indigenous populations in the United States, is it? No. Oh, we have an answer. He is no longer in prison. He was released in 2006 or 2007. So it's good to know that he's free to fart about the earth. The United States has returned a 15th century letter by Christopher Columbus to Italy, the US Immigration and Customs, or ICE, announced on Wednesday. It's written in Latin, and it is one of some 30 surviving first editions of the explorer's letter announcing his discoveries on the American continent to Ferdinand and Isabella, the monarchs who funded Columbus's voyages. The item is believed to be a version that was stolen from the Biblioteca Nazionale Marciana in Venice in the 1980s. It was found in the possession of a private collector in the US. Copies of this letter are extremely rare and highly valued by collectors and historians. The version returned to Italy this week is known as Plonk 1 edition. There's not enough vowels in that word. Plonk 1 edition, named after Stephen Plonk. I don't know how to pronounce that surname, a prominent printer who published 2 editions of the letter more than 500 years ago. This document was first recovered in 2020, and the US Attorney's Office said it was valued at more than $1.3 million. This is the 4th original edition of the letter stolen over the past decades, and we could not be happier to return it. Other copies that were stolen include one that US authorities sent back to a library in Vatican City. Oh, the Vatican Library. Something stolen from them. My heart bleeds. I'm being facetious a bit. And another was returned to the Library of Catalonia in Spain in 2016. An 8-page copy that had come from a library in Florence was also returned. ICE says it has returned more than 20,000 objects to more than 40 countries and institutions since 2007. This includes art looted by Nazis, Egyptian sarcophagi, French paintings, Italian sculptures, Mongolian and Chinese dinosaur fossils, and even human remains. Oh, that's the prison sentence. Thanks you for doing that maths, Deborah. So he served 7 months. It's almost like they don't take it seriously. Facts. Yes, do it. But for real, not a movie. Just do it. Because let's let Anne Boleyn Henry VIII letters. Anne Boleyn Henry VIII letters. And I think if there were to be her responses somewhere, then it would be there. And we have another repatriation. This is another Spanish explorer, Hernando Cortés, a 500-euro manuscript signed by Hernando Cortés, returned to Mexico. It's been returned to the Archivo General de Nación de Mexico, which is in Mexico City. This is a payment order signed by Cortés in April 27th, 1527, authorizing the purchase of rose sugar for the pharmacy in the exchange for 12 gold pesos. It's believed to be one of several pieces unlawfully removed from a collection of documents concerning a Spanish expedition to Central America in 1527. Last week, officials from the U.S. Attorney's Office for the District of Massachusetts and the FBI participated in a formal repatriation ceremony at Mexico's National Archives. It's a violation of federal law to transport or receive stolen goods valued at more than $5,000 that have travelled in foreign or interstate commerce. According to investigators in early 2022, a person consigned the Cortés manuscript for online auction at a Massachusetts auction house. The auction house removed the manuscript from an upcoming auction, and the manuscript was recovered, officials said. Quote, after being missing for decades, thanks to incredible international collaboration and persistence, the Cortés manuscript is finally where it belongs, back in Mexico, where it will remain a treasured part of Mexico's history and heritage. I think that's if they still existed, then they almost certainly would. The question is, how did Henry's letters to Anne get to the Vatican? The answer is there is a paid spy, I believe, in Anne's household who is stealing the letters that she received from Henry. It is odd to me that there was nobody in Henry's household that couldn't even copy the ones that she received from him, because that is vital intelligence. If the Vatican was interested in Henry's letters to Anne, trust and believe they are interested in what's going the other way as well. So, and there's no doubt in my mind that Henry had spies around him, because that is monarchy. That is monarchy. Nobody who is a person of prominence then or now doesn't have people in their life who are being paid to observe them by somebody else. This is interesting. Federal funding, we are told, has incentivized institutions to hold on to and even destroy native remains. A new report suggests this is another report that has been done by ProPublica. Their journalism is just phenomenal. I say it every time. Tribal artifacts, we're being told, are being held in labs instead of being repatriated. Government grants have incentivized researchers to hold on to and even destroy Native American human remains. Since 1990, federal agencies have awarded at least $15 million for research projects involving Native cultures. This report that's been published this week has revealed, but this has adverse consequences. In some cases, cultural artifacts have remained in labs instead of being repatriated. Others, they have been intentionally damaged through analysis. Yeah, we know that some of these tests can be invasive. So instances like this may constitute violations in NAGPRA, which requires federally funded institutions to inventory and return human remains, sacred objects, and other items to lineal descendants and affiliated tribes. Quote, there's somehow this perspective that this kind of research will enhance us or benefit us, Teresa Pascual, Director of Historic Preservation Office for Pueblo of Acoma. Quote, what it does is it bolsters their careers. It bolsters their professional academic standing. Let's be real about it. Yes. ProPublica's report points to several examples of how research projects have undermined the aims of NAGPRA. 20 years ago, a University of Utah anthropology professor named Joan Brenner Coltrane obtained funding to analyse human remains held at Harvard's Peabody. Her proposal for the project promised that it would, quote, undoubtedly influence the institution's repatriation's decisions. This work saw the anthropologist shatter sections of her subjects' bones to study their mitochondrial DNA. This research ultimately proved disappointing, and the Peabody made no repatriations after the project. So that was a zero loss. That was a dead loss, wasn't it? When NAGPRA was passed in 1990, it was estimated that thousands of native objects would be returned within the decade. As of this year, the remains of more than 110,000 Native American, Native Hawaiian, and Alaska Native ancestors still reside in institutional collections. The discrepancy has led to complaints about the wording of the law and the loopholes it presents. Well, yeah. According to ProPublica's report, it took a full decade after NAGPRA's passing for the American Museum of Natural History and Harvard to inventory their collection of Native American remains. When these were finally shared with the National Park Service, as required by the Act, the majority of the remains were characterized as culturally unidentifiable. This designation effectively allows the institutions to continue using these remains for research purposes since no one is able to legally claim them. Isn't that interesting? That the institution who currently holds the remains, who clearly wants to keep hold of them for research purposes, is able to say that, my goodness, what a weird coinkydink. We don't know which tribal affiliation would be appropriate for these remains. They are culturally not distinct. Oh, whoopsie daisy. We get to keep them. Such a shame. Too bad, so sad. Yeah, okay. That feels unbiased. The Department of the Interior earlier this year proposed regulations for NAGPRA and how the act is enforced. If this was to be adopted, these changes would require researchers to demonstrate they had consulted with the tribes before obtaining the grant. Of course that wasn't happening already. Of course it wasn't. It would also call for institutions to stop research on Native American remains if requested by a tribe. Yeah. What? The new regulations could go into effect as soon as January 2024. The Department of the Interior said, yes. They didn't know or didn't care to find out. Yes. I did a whoopsie. I didn't do a good. I did a bad. I'm too silly. I'm just doing my best. I'm just naive. Oh, call me Shelby White. Yes, Hadrian. Allegedly. It's like Terminator inside my face. I am gonna. This is not good for my health. I need to see a physician. They did though, didn't they? These are people that are in. I mean, look, I am not an anthropologist. I can't claim to be, but they have dedicated their lives to being able to identify where somebody, which bend in a river, a person spent their age from 0 to 7. Like, you've got to have a fair idea about communities in more cases than they have disclosed. So that isn't incompetence, it's connivance, right? Allegedly. Oh, interesting. filling out the paperwork for artifacts is a job often given to volunteers who may or may not identify things correctly. But isn't that also a very helpful way of absolving people of any responsibility? Give it to the volunteer. Wowzers. Wowzers. I cannot confirm or deny, but let's be perfectly honest. If I ever did, who here would give me 15 different alibis? Who'd be my alibi machine? I don't need a moderator. I need an alibi. Italy has repatriated this stela to Turkey. This was stolen from a city located in southeastern Turkey. It dates the 2nd century AD. It's a noble woman wearing a veil and a tunic. The inscription reads, Saturnilla, the wife who loves her husband, farewell. My husband just sent me a GIF from from Star Trek of somebody just doing this, and he's just said, I'm at DEFCON -10. Thanks, Dawn. I may be in contact at some point. So this is sweet. Saturnilla, the wife who loves her husband, farewell. It's a 2,000-year-old love story encompassing strong emotions such as separation, sorrow, and loyalty. Stela was recovered by Italian authorities in Venice. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. I've just call Concorde. I'm flying. Bring Concorde back online. It's somebody doing the Picard meme, but it's not Picard. It's somebody. Jamie, who is this? Tell me, because that's not Jean-Luc Picard. He's doing the face. face. 3 Cypriot antiquities have been repatriated from Italy. These were seized by Italian authorities. And it's supposed to be Picard. He says he needs glasses. I love you. It's not Picard, babe. It looks like him, but it's somebody. Either their face has been swapped. It's not him, babe. These antiquities are 3 pottery vessels dating to the Bronze Age, and an official ceremony for handing over the antiquities took place on the 17th of July at the offices for the Culinary in Rome. The objects are now being kept at the Cyprus Museum in Nicosia, where they're going to be inventoried, conserved, and digitized as part of the Department of Antiquities digitization program. That is a chewy sentence. The Department of Antiquities said, quote, as the competent department of the Republic of Cyprus for the protection and management of the island's archaeological heritage, it will continue its intensive efforts to further protect the cultural heritage locally and internationally. Now then, why not? If anybody can, if anybody knows where one can make replicas, pop a link in the chat, and I'll put it on screen. Who makes replica pots? Somebody must do it. Let's share some people who can make things. We haven't got to loot things. This next one, friends, is wickedy wild. What is going on? Treasures lent by Israel for a White House event stranded at Mar-A-Lago. I'm sorry. What is happening? These are artifacts sent from Israel to the US 4 years ago on a short-term basis. They were going to be displayed at a White House event, have somehow ended up in Donald Trump's estate in Florida. The Israeli Daily Haaretz reported on Tuesday that antiquities, including ancient ceramic oil lamps, part of Israel's national treasure collection, were shipped to DC with the approval of the then director of the Israel Antiquities Authority for use in a Hanukkah candle lighting event at the White House. This event took place in 2019 when Trump was in office. Okay. In the end, the oil lamps were not displayed due to US concerns they may have been taken from the West Bank. The Antiquities Authority's plan to have the candelabra returned via special courier was disrupted because of COVID-19. Okay, I can see that. So they got stuck in the US. Yep, I'm following that. Saul Fox, a major American Jewish donor to the Antiquities Authority who attended the 2019 Hanukkah celebration with Trump, was asked to take care of the items until they could be returned safely. Tracking so far. But Israeli officials recently learned the antiquities eventually ended up at the former president's Florida estate. Did you trip and fall into Mar-a-Lago? You have one job, my guy. So, of course, the FBI raided the premises to reveal boxes of classified document being stored in bathrooms and other spaces after being removed from the White House. Was the oil lamp being used as a paperweight in the box? What is happening? It's not clear how the artifact ended up at Mar-a-Lago. Well, someone took them there. There wasn't a magic carpet. It's not Aladdin, is it? Or whether Trump is aware they're on the premises. Babe. Allegedly. Babe. I mean, the man buried his ex-wife on a golf course. Okay. A source updated on the affair said that he would not be surprised, quote, if the items Israel seeks are also eventually found in some bathroom there. The shade. The current director of the Israel Antiquities Authority said he'd contacted the Israeli Foreign Affairs Ministry, the Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, and the former US Ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, asking for their help in retrieving the items from Mar-a-Lago, but without success. On Tuesday, an Israeli official briefed on the matter, described it as, quote, a misunderstanding, and said the Antiquities Authority woke up too late to the problem. You know, sometimes I just feel like somehow there was a timeline that we were all on, and then something happened. Maybe it was the Hadron Collider being switched on. Maybe it was that weasel that got in there. I'm not saying what I'm saying it. But this is not. This is weird. This is weird. You were going to kill me. That was a full Muttley wheeze. Full Muttley wheeze. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. This is. I don't understand how this has been allowed to happen. Any of it, actually. So much. I'm very confused. I'm very confused. Scandalo. Do it. Do it. Do it. I mean, it's the weirdness is transatlantic, Yvonne. I'm not gonna. It's getting pretty wickedly wild over here. Tell you that. I tell you that. Yeah, I agree. That is probably one of my favourites. Just let's put that up for posterity. Trumple Thin Skin is chef's kiss, delightful, loving your work, never change, delightful. People talking about him being a hoarder. I mean, yeah, he does low key sound like a hoarder, which is a diagnosable kind of illness. Like maybe he's not well, but then get him help, preferably in somewhere with 15 locks on the door. Next thing that's a bit weird. Presumed Beethoven skull fragments returned to Vienna. I wasn't aware we were missing them. Turns out we are. Skull fragments presumed to be from Beethoven have been returned to Vienna, where he is buried. US businessman Paul Kaufman donated the fragments. Why have you got them, Paul? Why have you got that? Which he inherited to the Medical University of Vienna, where researchers will probe the illnesses it suffered by the impresario and the cause of his death. This is where the bones belong, back in Vienna. Yeah, babe, true. With the rest of the human remains. What? These are 10 fragments, including 2 bigger pieces, one from the back of the head and one from the right side of the forehead. They apparently have great value. We have received really valuable material here with which we hope to continue to research in the next years. That was Beethoven's wish too. The composer battled illness through his life and explicitly asked for his body to be studied. These fragments are believed to be the only surviving fragments of Beethoven's skull. So I'm assuming that means that the remains... Oh, do you know what? Let's stick with this. The available evidence suggests that they are authentic. In 2005, US scientists announced that tests on a hair of Beethoven and the skull fragments showed that he died from lead poisoning, which may also have been responsible for his hearing loss. Look, there's a lot of wacky behaviour that is being perpetrated by some of the old generations, and you cannot tell me that lead paint is not the cause. Like some of the stuff that comes out of people's mouths when I am working at the museum, I'm like, you ate a dinky car, didn't you? you had a little Robin Reliant model and you ate it, and now the lead poisoning is... Researchers at the US Department of Energy's Argonne National Laboratory in Illinois said that these bone fragments tested at the country's most powerful X-ray had high concentrations of lead. The source of the lead is unknown, but they say it may have come from a wine goblet made with metal. Friends, don't drink out of lead. It's not good for you. It is not a fun vitamin. Alternatively, some medical treatments in the 18th and 19th centuries did use heavy metals like lead and mercury. Correct. He suffered abdominal pains. Beethoven suffered abdominal pains in his 20s, which got progressively worse. In March, researchers who sequenced Beethoven's genome using authenticated hair samples said liver failure or cirrhosis was likely behind his death, brought about by a number of factors, including alcohol consumption. Yes, don't eat the paint, kids. And having one of my own, he licks a lot of stuff. The floor. Today we walked past one of those like charging points for a car. I don't know what possessed him, but he went over and hugged it and kissed it. He will put his mouth on some feral things. Oh yeah, there are some points. There's a lot of lead line pipes, and there are sometimes where I'm like in old palaces going, is this the drinking water one or is this the lead one? Guess we'll find out in 20 years. Ding-a-ling. So we've got the new news, hopping straight on through. We have got a rare fossil that may show a small mammal attacking a dinosaur, which will alter our potentially our traditional view of dinosaurs. This has been found in China. It suggests that millions of years ago, some mammals actively hunted dinosaurs that were several times their size. The honey badger of prehistoric mammal. I love this to them. These are 125 million year old bones that we've got a cat-sized creature whose skeleton is entangled in a final tussle with a beaked dinosaur. This two animals fight is immortalized when a nearby volcanic eruption entombed them in a fast-moving wave of ash and mud. We've got this picture of mammals as literal underdogs, says Elsa Panciroli, who's a paleontologist at Oxford's Museum of Natural History, that they're being trampled. They're carrying the darkness at night, just trying to avoid being eaten. Apparently not. Jordan Mallon, a study co-author, says, we already knew that mammals did occasionally prey on at least baby dinosaurs. Oh, what's new here is even a fully grown Piscatosaurus wasn't necessarily safe from these smaller mammalian predators. I'll tell you what it is, Brian. I'll tell you for why. Why? Because in these fair islands, after we have hunted wolves and boar into out of existence, badgers are our apex predators. That's what we got. The badger. They are the apex predator of our fair islands, and that is why we're obsessed with them. Also, the honey badger is my spirit animal because they know no fear. They go straight for the genitals. Oh dear. So what we have here is the mammal's hand inside the mouth of the dinosaur, which had a high bite force, suggests at least the dinosaur was dead at the time of burial, or it would easily have sliced off the hand. Hans Larsen, a paleontologist at McGill University. So carrying on, quote, the awkward interlocking legs between the two suggest they were both dead or tumbled while being buried. In this case, there's not enough evidence to say with full confidence the mammal was the predator caught in the act of subduing its prey. But that's funny. I want that to be the case. The team estimated at the time of death the badger-like mammal, it is a badger-like mammal as well, weighed about 7.5 pounds, while the dino weighed about 3 times that. Look, it's not how big you are, it's what you do that counts. This was found in a site that's sometimes called Dinosaur Pompeii, which, because I'm assuming of the volcanic eruption, much like Pompeii. It's rare for fossils to display interactions of animals in this way. For a fossil to be preserved in the first place, conditions must be exactly right. When the bones do fossilize, they are often scattered or incomplete. They don't typically capture details of animal behavior. This is the kind of specimen that paleontologists dream of, a pristine snapshot of ancient behavior and ecology. If this specimen is the real deal, it's a 1 in a million find. My husband said, Brian, you asked what the obsession with badgers is, and as I said, they are the apex predators. But my husband also points out, compare the badger of the United States to the badger in the UK. Apparently your badgers, the USA's badgers, looks like it might mug you. I don't know what he's talking about, but I'm just just reading that. And I suppose when you're expecting lots of people to die of, dysentery, syphilis, or tuberculosis, you probably don't give them long enough to go stark staring mad on account of the lead poisoning. So there's that as well. I'm being hyperbolic, but next up we have got a 300,000-year-old double-pointed stick is among the oldest of human-made wooden tools. Oh, I think he might give me a picture. I think he sent me a picture. Archaeologists have oh Lord. Our badgers are cute. They're really sweet. Like, I wouldn't want to be bitten by one, but they're cute. Your badgers with that white stripe down the forehead, they look like they want to take my lunch money. Your badgers look like bullies. Your badgers would bully our badgers. And I feel bad for our badgers now. Yeah. So, if my, yeah. If my son saw this stick, he'd be like, magic wand? Because currently every stick that lives on the pavement is a magic wand, and you can tell it's magic by sniffing it and trying to put it in your mouth. While I say, don't put that in your mouth, it's been on the ground. So this is found in Germany, and included in what ancient people left behind are wooden spears, shorter throwing stick that have been sharpened at both ends. It's unclear exactly which hominin is responsible for producing these tools, but it's suggested by their age it's either Homo heidelbergensis or Homo neanderthalensis. This collection has been analysed before, but further analysis has been required to gain a deeper insight into how these tools were used. They have been analysed using a micro CT scanner, 3D microscopy, and infrared spectroscopy to better understand how they were made and their potential uses. These results have been published in the PLOS1 journal, PLOS1. This double-pointed stick in particular reveals new human behaviours for the time period that is made from spruce. It's been debarked and shaped for aerodynamics and ergonomics. And it's thought also that the wood was seasoned to prevent it from cracking or warping. The insights from these analytic techniques suggest that this purpose of this tool was for throwing during hunting, which indicates, quote, potential hunting strategies and social contexts, including for communal hunts involving children. These throwing sticks may have been used to strategically disadvantage larger ungulates, hooved animals such as deer and antelope, potentially from distances up to 30 meters. Bloody hell, that's got to be ergodynamic. Aerodynamic, ergonomic. 30 meters for a child? What an arm. My goodness. These are not only the only ancient tools that have been found on the site. In 2012, they found a 171,000-year-old set of tools, possibly made using fire. I don't think they're hunting the children. I think the children are hunting. The children are doing the hunting. Let's make that clear. Let's make that clear. In 1911, an artifact now known as the Clacton spear, found in Clacton, unsurprisingly, in Essex, is believed to be the 400,000-year-old tip of a spear, making it the oldest known wooden tool. Archaeologists in Louisiana have saved 12,000-year-old artifacts from natural disasters and looters. We are talking about things that have been buried in the woods in west central Louisiana. Stone tools, spear points, other evidence of people living in that area as far back as 12,000 years ago. This summer, this has been digging up the ground because these items have been made more exposed due to hurricanes and also flooding and looters. Quote, this site appears to have been continuously occupied throughout prehistory, as evidenced by a wide range of stone tools and pottery dating to each Native American cultural era up to European contact. The site was found in 2003, according to the Forest Service, after hurricanes uprooted trees, disturbing and exposing some of the artifacts. Between the looting and the hurricane damage, they were really in danger of losing the site over time, and so this is why this work has been done. Quote, "It's like walking into the archive and finding a book that's so rare it's one of a kind and predates writing itself. It's like tearing a page out of that book and walking off with it." This is what's said of essentially the looting process. What's been found so far, these salvaged artifacts will be sorted, catalogued, and examined as researchers at the archaeology lab seek to make determinations about past cultures at the site. This is cool. This little drawing, this prehistoric societies in the Spanish Levantine mastered climbing and used equipment. And what we have here is a painting showing that climbing happening. This is rock art that shows the use of ropes to do kind of high scale climbing, etc. Among the study depictions, collecting honey emerges as the sole clearly identifiable activity. The production of a rope measuring approximately 25 metres in length would have demanded significant time and effort, encompassing the gathering of raw materials and the actual crafting process. The considerable risk involved in climbing to such heights using a rudimentary rope ladder underscores the paramount importance of both honey and wax being collected to these societal groups. Bee-related products, we're told, held significant importance in prehistoric times as they served various economic, technological, and cultural purposes. They were sustenance with their high calorific value. And what we see in the images is an array of climbing systems, and these climbing systems have been categorized into two groups based upon their size, shape, and flexibility. So we've got rigid ladders or masts, and we've got flexible systems likely associated with the difference of raw materials. While many of the seeds examined in this study are familiar, the comprehensive investigation of ropes and their associated technology had not been previously undertaken. The materials used for rope production and the techniques employed to create them are largely imperceptible in archaeological records, making it challenging to trace their origins over time. Spanish Levantine rock art stands as a remarkable phenomenon unique to the eastern region of the Iberian Peninsula, emerging after the Paleolithic era. With over 1,000 recorded sites, it has been designated as a World Heritage Site since 1998. The art form offers an extraordinary depiction of human life during pivotal stages of its development. Characterized by its naturalistic style and rich narrative elements, it portrays dynamic scenarios encompassing hunting, warfare, social activities, gatherings, and more, providing an invaluable glimpse into the past. Just heard a squeal. I'm not sure if that was my son or somebody outside. Who will tell? So that's cool. I think we will no doubt be learning more about this. How fabulous. This one, right, made me do a big bit of a squint. A rare clay figurine found in an Italian cave dating back 7,000 years. I'm going to be honest, when I first saw this, I thought it might belong in a different section, but maybe that's just my dirty mind. Archaeologists from the Sapienza University of Rome have discovered this figure with female features, and I don't know what they're seeing. I don't know why that's female. I'll be honest with you. I've looked at it. I don't understand it, but okay. This is a clay figurine dating from 7,000 years ago, the Neolithic period. A press release from the university says that objects of this kind are very rare in Italy. A multidisciplinary study, according to the coordinated by the Department of Ancient World Studies, is looking at, quote, the technological and stylistic aspects of this figurine to try and understand why it was made. Thank you, Laurie. My first thought, right? I don't know. So what they're saying is the doll's facial features, according to archaeologists, are only schematically hinted at. The researchers, however, stated that the artisan who created the artifact took greater care in representing the hairstyle and bodily decorations. Where's the hair? I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it wrong. Maybe it's just in the wrong angle. So Dr. Celia Conati from the university said that when the presence of ceramics is combined with faunal and botanical signs on several stratified levels, and the discovery of a human skeleton beside the doll, secrets are revealed. It all suggests that the spring at the mouth of the cave was not only used for water supplies, but also for burial and ritual purposes. That's a good point. I mean, maybe if you squint and look at it through Tuesday, I mean, maybe when it's cleaned up, it's much more obvious. I've done this a lot. I've looked at the image like this quite a lot and gone, I don't know. But I trust them. They're the ones holding it. This cave provided shelter and protection for early human inhabitants who relied on hunting, gathering, and rudimentary architecture for survival. Agriculture, not architecture. Agriculture for survival. This clay doll strongly suggests that it was also used for ceremonial purposes. Or maybe ritual purposes, not a drinking game, friends. This 10-year-old girl, bless her, picked up what she thought was a rock at a National Trust site. And if I was 10 and I'd picked that up thinking it was a stone, I would be like, I have just won at life. This is going in my room. It's going with my doodads and my trinkets. And then her mum was like, I don't know about that. Let me have a little look. She Googled it and then inform the appropriate authorities. And thanks, Mum, for doing that. But I can imagine if I was the little girl, I'd be like, what? But it's my glorious rock. It's a 6,000-year-old Neolithic axe head found in Surrey, and it could be worth up to £1,000. And experts have praised the girl Evie for her outstanding find. It's been recorded on the Portable Antiquities Scheme, which is run by the British Museum, and it's been described as a complete flint axe head, which had been partially polished. The axe head, which Joanne believes to be worth over £1,000, was found on National Trust property, and the family are waiting to hear what the organisation plans to do with the item. That's a good find. Well done, Evie. Well done. Yeah, these Gen Alpha, they come for all of our gigs. They're digital natives. They also know about privacy more than we ever will. Yeah, they are. Yeah, she does look chuffed, doesn't she? She does look chuffed. I think maybe once she's been told how good it is, that that she's happier now. Oh, depends on what date it comes from and whether it's deemed to be treasure. And National Trust doesn't mean it belongs to the nation, because if it did, I could go in there for free. National Trust is an organisation that cares for buildings and land, etc. And this needs to happen. The girl who found the sword in Sweden, we need to set up a league of extraordinary child archaeologists. Just send them out into the world. I'll give you this Kinder Egg for axe head. is a weird trade, but hey, whatever works. This article came with lots of pictures, obviously of human remains, so thus I'm not showing them on here because I don't do that. But skulls that may have been intentionally deformed into the shape of hearts have been discovered among human remains at a site in Mexico. Now, as I said, I'm not showing the pictures here, but they are on the article page that's linked. I'm going to be honest, I couldn't quite figure out how this deformation looked. I suppose I'm not quite sure what the alteration would have looked like in life. They have found 16 individuals within this architectural complex. The latest discovery is made under a floor of a plaza. The remains of 8 adults aged between 30 and 40, and the remaining skeleton was of children aged between 1 and 7. Most skeletons are fragmented, although 3 of the adults were found in a good state of preservation, and skulls of 2 of the skeletons had cranial modifications, indicating that the heads had been intentionally deformed. The deformation in question produces a shape that resembles a heart when looked at from certain angles. Now, I was looking at these pictures. I'll be honest, I couldn't see a heart, but maybe once again, it's like the bust of the lady that I think looks like a ding dong. Maybe I just can't see it in the picky pics. Have a look if you wish, but it is human remains. So the development of the skull would have been distorted by the application of force, which can be achieved using various techniques, such as binding between pieces of wood. Typically, such techniques are applied during infancy because the skull is at its most pliable at this time. The area that has been excavated was inhabited by pre-Hispanic people between 600 to 1350 BCE. It contains several notable archaeological remains, including circular ritual spaces, pyramidal structures, pyramid shapes, and a ball game court. The complex, which corresponds to the period 600 to 950 BCE, is located in the upper part of La Feria and covers an area of around 6,500 square feet. There are 9 rectangular structures around a square. And in previous excavations, they have found various burials within the buildings, leading people to conclude that it is a space dedicated to the dead. This archaeological zone, which is about 4 miles south of the city of Durango, is one of the most important monumental sites in the state. I don't think, if done slowly and appropriately, I don't see why they would. If they're not massively extreme, as long as the skull has space to expand in some direction, then I don't know why it would cause damage to the internal structure. But I am not a neurology expert by any means at all, so let's just put that away. But you do see children who have their heads reshaped because they've been like laying flat or something, and so there is a kind of movability there that doesn't create damage, and the reshaping of the skull isn't done for brain space purposes. Wow, that was poorly worded. It's done for aesthetics, right? Thank you, the super sticker, Elverta. That's very kind of you. I very much appreciate that. Thank you so much. A Bronze Age ceremony have been discovered at a construction site for a rocket launch pad in the UK. It's a sentence that is fascinating. This is a Bronze Age ritual ceremony found at this construction site. The company in question, Saxavord Spaceport, is developing a ground station network on the island of Unst in Shetland, which is the northernmost point of the UK. They're going to launch payloads into various orbits around the Earth. I'm going to put a pin in that and reassess at a later date. According to an announcement on Facebook, this is so weird, so weird. So we've got a ritual site from prehistory. We've got space cannons and then Facebook. Like, the juxtaposition of time periods and age groups is fascinating to me. My husband, the anthropologist, has said that head deforming still happens rarely in Ecuador. The Ecuadorian skull is deemed to be very aesthetically pleasing. Thank you for that information. So, according to the announcement on Facebook, the Saxavord spaceport called on AOC Archaeology Group to assess the findings, which included pits and burned bones. It's thought to be the remains of cremation deposit from an ancient ritual complex that dates back to 2200 between 2200 and 1800 BCE. Quote, "This is a hugely exciting discovery, and we're looking forward to piecing together the full story. But this discovery will not hamper construction work." Quote, "The number and density of cremations suggests that the location of their discovery it was likely a cremation ceremony that may have been in continuous use over time in prehistory. The standout feature uncovered so far are the remains of a quartz setting. While quartz is often suggested to have had significance in prehistory and is found in association with burial tombs, rock art panels and found associated with burial tombs, rock art panels, and deposited carefully at domestic sites. A quartz setting. I'm not 100% sure I know what that is, but I will investigate and find out. There's more. There is more. So Val Turner, who's an archaeologist with Shetland Regional Trust, calls the news hugely exciting. Quote, "The Bronze Age is perhaps the period of Shetland's past which we know the least about, and this is a wonderful opportunity to change that. Prehistoric activity dating as far back as 4320 BCE has been discovered in Shetland over the past century. In particular, the archaeological site of Jarlshof has turned up Neolithic structures as well as a Bronze Age settlement that includes wheelhouses, a smithy, and a broch." So there we go. More things to find in Shetland. But that's not all. People have been building other stuff. Once again, roadworks are responsible for a good thing being found, seemingly. We've got a Bronze Age find on the site of works that are happening for the A428. They've unearthed a loom weight believed to date to the Bronze Age. It was found at a dig by the Highways England work on this road, which is on the Cambridgeshire-Bedfordshire border. This is the only pre-Iron Age object. Only pre-Iron Age objects discovered in the area have been stone arrowheads. So this is a new discovery. It helps to build an incredibly detailed picture of what life was like in this part of Britain thousands of years ago. This include the unusual loom weight, which would have been used in cloth making. If it's proved to be Bronze Age, it suggests that people were living in the area for far longer than originally believed. Archaeologists believe that luxuries such as wine might have been enjoyed in the area during the Roman period after lab analysis of grape pollen found in waterlogged soil suggested the area had vineyards. The diggers previously revealed areas of evidence of Roman era beer making and a communal area for Iron Age feasts. It seems that the Romans also imported amphora, possibly holding olive oil, from Spain, and an expensive dinnerware called Samian ware from France. They also found a Roman stylus, which would have been used to write on wax tablets. So these excavations, we are being told, are super exciting, I agree, and give us the unusual opportunity to understand an entire ancient landscape. Perhaps more will be coming out about this. There's work being done to conserve Costa Rica's stone spheres, which we can see in this picture here. There are over 300 stone petrospheres, often referred to as the Dickey spheres, that have been found on the small island of Aya de Cano, which is in Costa Rica. The spheres are attributed to the now extinct Dickey culture, which first emerged in the valley of the Rio Grande Between AD 800 and 1500, this culture, we are told, reached the apex of its development, creating elaborate ceramic, bone, and gold objects and sculpting stone spheres that were placed in important zones and places of alignments in public plazas. These spheres vary in size, spanning from a few centimetres to over 2 metres in diameter. The spheres are predominantly crafted from gabbro, which is a phaneretic, mamphic, intrusive indigenous rock resembling basalt. That's a lot of words that I don't know the meaning of. But they also use limestone and sandstone in the creation of these spheres. And they are made by hammering boulders into a rough spherical shape using denser rocks and then polished using sand to make a smooth finish. This must have taken blinking ages. Quote, the importance of these spheres constitutes elements of identity for many indigenous communities in Costa Rica, and they are the only cultural asset that the country has inscribed on the World Heritage List of the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, also known as UNESCO. Based on the studies carried out on the largest stone spheres, experts have investigated the materiality of these cultural assets to optimize their conservation treatments, assess the cultural significance of the sites, and protect the cultural heritage for future generations. Oh, the words I did not understand is a dense igneous rock, usually part of the oceanic seafloor. So then the question becomes again, how do they get them onto land? Or was that land once covered by sea? Very interesting. This image had human remains, hence there's no picture, but it's believed that a charioteer has been found in a Bronze Age grave in Siberia. They have found a hooked piece of bronze at the waist of a set of skeletal human remains in an intact 3,000-year-old grave in Siberia. Similar metal artifacts have been found in Bronze Age graves containing horses and chariots in China, and it's thought that charioteers could use such hooks to affix the reins to their waist, allowing them to use their hands. The square stone tomb, thought to belong to the cattle breeding Lugov culture, had been covered with a mound of earth, and it also contained a bronze knife and bronze jewellery. The team member Oleg Midko explained that the inclusion of the bronze belt accessory in the burial may have been symbolic, since remains of chariots have not been found in any burials in Siberia to date. You can read about other burials by following the link in the linked web page that you can see both on the opera pin board and in the description box. 2,300-year-old glass workshop littered with Celtic coins is the oldest known north of the Alps. Look at these pieces of glass they found. Isn't it fabulous? Archaeologists in the Czech Republic have unearthed the oldest known glass workshop north of the Alps at a site that may have been used for ritualistic purposes. Really pretty, isn't it? Glass-making tools, we're told, were not found there, but researchers discovered a mix of finished and incomplete glass and amber items, which could indicate they were crafted on-site and not imported from elsewhere. Quote, no one yet knows exactly how Celts made glass bracelets. Therefore, we're interested in anything that tells us something about the technology of production. In addition to the artifacts, researchers also discovered a square structure that resembled similar ancient buildings used for rituals, including a site called Sandburg in Austria that was once occupied by Celts. Quote, the presence of these likely sacred features indicates the character of the site not only as a trade and production centre, but also as a seat of an elite and ritual centre. How cool is that? Yes, I really like blue sea glass. I think that's really cool. And green, to be honest. I just like sea glass, I think, maybe. Noon. This is interesting. A 2,000-year-old Iron Age warrior has, we now think, been determined to be female. There's been a mystery about this figure found on one of the Scilly Isles, which is southwest of mainland Britain. The site was discovered in 1999. In the grave was a sword and shield, which is normally associated with male burials. But there's also a mirror, which is normally buried alongside a woman. Toothed animal indicated with a 96% of probability that the person was female, according to a study published on Thursday in the Journal of Archaeological Science reports. This grave, which is dated from 100 BCE to 50 BCE, offers a glimpse into ancient British life and suggests that women may have taken an active part in military raids before the tribal queen Boudica led a fierce uprising against the Roman colonization of Britain in AD 60. Quote, our findings offer an exciting opportunity to reinterpret this important burial. They provide evidence of a leading role for a woman in warfare on Iron Age Scilly. Although we can never completely know about the symbolism of objects found in graves, the combination of a sword and a mirror suggests this woman held high status within her community and may have played a commanding role in local warfare, organising or leading raids on rival groups. The body was so decomposed that DNA testing was inconclusive. Only a dark outline of the skeleton in the soil was visible during excavation. But there's a new analysis that's been made possible because of pioneering biomolecular analysis techniques from the University of California. We are told that the toothed enamel is the hardest and most durable substance in the human body. It determines a protein which with links to either the X or Y chromosome, which means that it can be used to determine sex. And it's useful because this protein survives well compared to DNA. Other graves, we're told, could be re-examined using the same process. Little is known about the Celtic people who lived in Britain before the Roman occupation, but archaeologists believe the main form of warfare was surprise attacks on enemy settlements. We're told that mirrors had both symbolic and practical value to warriors. They are used to signal allies and coordinate attacks, as well as to communicate with the supernatural world. This grave is the only one in Western Europe to have both a mirror and a shield. These items are on display at the Isle of Scilly Museum on the island of St. Mary's. How cool is that? Archaeologists have found the oldest evidence of curry outside of India. It's worth pointing out, as this article does, that the term curry has limited meaning because that's a term that has been developed out of possibly the Tamil word curry, which literally just means sauce. So, but in this new study, microscopic spice remains on 40 grinding and pounding stones excavated in southern Vietnam has been done. The team was looking to find more information on the function of grinding tools, but their analysis reveals traces of 8 spices on 12 of the stone tools: turmeric, ginger, fingerroot, I'm not sure what that is, sand ginger, I don't know what that is either, galangal, clove, nutmeg, and cinnamon. This confirmed the tools were used to process food, but also reveals an ancient spice trade because some of these spices are native to regions thousands of kilometers away from the site, suggesting that people are transporting them via the Indian or Pacific Ocean. And we are talking about a site that comes from around 2,000 years ago. This site is located among the ancient canals on the southwestern side of the Mekong Delta. So, and it's suggesting that this city was once at a crossroads for major trade routes stretching as far as the Mediterranean Sea. Most of the tools that were analysed have been excavated in 2017 to 2019. Some had been collected previously by the local museum. They also found traces of coconut, remnants of rice, and some well-preserved seed. One nutmeg seed that was recovered dated to 120 to 248 CE, which means it's the oldest nutmeg specimen in mainland Southeast Asia. The finding represents the oldest evidence of curry found outside of India. Quote, another fascinating finding is that the curry recipe used in Vietnam has not deviated significantly from the ancient Archaeological period. Key components such as turmeric, cloves, cinnamon, coconut milk have remained consistent in the recipe. It goes to show a good recipe will stand the test of time. Well, that's more than I knew. Sand ginger and galangal, same thing. I mean, qu'est-ce que c'est que ça? Evelyn, AI generated. Finger root, also known as Chinese ginger, medicinal and culinary herb from China and Southeast Asia. The scientific name for finger root is Bosenbergia rotunda. Sand ginger, also called aromatic ginger, and it's harder and therefore harder to work with. Ah, very interesting. So not a pretty pick, just ginger you drop from the ground. My ginger would be sand ginger for that reason. Interesting. Very interesting. Talking about AI generation, at some point, I want to do something history related for a video using ChatGPT. I'm puzzling how to do it, but I think it would be a fun video to make for the main, like, Friday video. So if anybody has any thoughts, I'm wondering, maybe do I put out a post about let's ask ChatGPT history questions, or do I think of one and then assess it? As the names indicate, the most obvious difference between the two spices is their size. Sand ginger is typically smaller and thinner than those of the greater galangal. So they're similar but different sizes. Thank you, Hadrian. These are cute little nuggets. Rare ancient stamps found in Denmark may show a way to an unknown king's home. Oh, so these are some good ideas. So answering ChatGPT's history questions, excellent. How about why AI should not be used for research purposes? So I did have a kind of spicy idea that I would try and see if I could get ChatGPT to create an undergraduate essay that couldn't be picked as being written by ChatGPT. Like, would that be I mean, I don't know enough about ChatGPT, but could I game it in such a way by inputting the correct questions or comments that I could create something that somebody who didn't know it was ChatGPT would mark as a regular essay? A scripted conversation between two historical figures. That's fun. I like that too. that that sounds fun. Grading ChatGPT's homework. Yeah, that's sort of what I was thinking. Like, I'd have to find a willing, because I'd know it was ChatGPT, so it wouldn't really be fair. So I'd have to find. But if I asked one of my friends who works in the university, just be like, "Could you mark this thing I've written?" They're gonna be like, "What? No, I'm not playing this game." Okay, so these has been found by a man with a metal detector. Once again, metal detectors for the win. And this discovery has been referred to as being so important that it could help to write a few chapters for Danish history. A faint beep with this metal detector revealed a special stamp in the ground, a so-called patrice that was used to make gold images, believed to be gifted to the gods. The Museum Lolland Fulster have been informed. This is a 2 centimetre long object that might be a trace of former royal power on Fulster. Quote, it indicates that we are standing in a place that has meant some trade and probably also had some form of cultic activity. Although it's a bit wild to say, it could also indicate that it was once a centre of power. These tiny objects are stamps from the era just before the Viking Age. They were created between the years 500 and 700. Oh, holding Manda, what do you say? An acquaintance has been teaching summer university classes was lamenting on finding evidence of ChatGPT in every single essay she got this semester. She had to fail 15 students for plagiarism. It's that obvious? Interesting. That's interesting. Evidence of ChatGPT. Teachers have to go back to having students write their papers, at least the first draft, by hand in class on paper in order to get a feel for the student's own writing style. Wow. I need to investigate ChatGPT. I mean, I've known it's out there, obviously, but I've sort of not been ignoring it, but not really known what I'd use it for. But I kind of want to do some sort of extent with it. Is it? Oh, hang on 1 second. It's a lot of work to get ChatGPT to do anything sensible sometimes. You wonder if it's just more, we just have to do less work if you actually wrote the essay yourself. See, I ran essays through a plagiarism checker when I was marking them as well. We had one. This is long before ChatGPT. I'm wondering if it would pick it up. I wonder if it would pick it up. Oh, yikes. Okay. All right. I'm going to investigate. I'm going to put a pin in. I'm going to put a pin in that in my mind in the ChatGPT. I think there's a video that can be done on this. ChatGPT puts words together that are statistically likely based on what it's read. It doesn't know what it's saying. Yeah. Okay. I'm going to see what I can. Do you know what? I might just like cold cock it and get my camera out and just experiment with the video and see what I get. And I'll do it on a day when I've got like some spare time. So if it doesn't work, then I can maybe try and organize something slightly less on the fly. But I kind of want to experience ChatGPT sort of like this, like with on a kind of first glance and get my reaction to it. So I don't do a lot of reaction videos. And I'm wondering what that would be like. So okay, I'm gonna let my cogs whir on that one. So what's been found here is extremely rare. Apparently, there's only been 28 stamps like this discovered in the entire Nordic region, including the one that's been found here. It's a very unique stamp. South of the Baltic Sea, no stamps or gold coins have been discovered. Quote, the stamps are all very special. We only find them in the most important place of residence, those that we call the central places in the technical language. These are places that we associate with the greatest magnates or kings. That's the league we're in here. And this stamp is at the same time very much for itself in its style. This stamp, you can see a person in fine clothes standing with their hands at a very special angle. Their hands are down, their palms are visible. It's something that we know in both Christian and pre-Christian cultures as either a sign of submission or a revelation. It's a symbol that we see in many churches today. We certainly do. Neither the god nor the king were shown as weak or flawed in any way. And you don't see that on the stamp from Falster either. This means it's either a royal figure who submits to God or that it is a god who reveals himself to a human being. It's actually difficult to see if it's male or female. You would see that by the fact there's a tuft of hair on the back of the piston. It may well appear there is, she says, the person talking about this, and that further investigations are required to determine whether or not this can be identified as being either male or female on this stamp. There may also be more finds in the ground at the site, so they aren't telling you where it was made, so to stop any looting from happening. Teresa, thank you so much for the super sticker. That's incredibly generous and very, very kind. Thank you. Amanda, your friend, the English lit professor, so the essays are the bulk of the work in the class. Wow. I mean, it shouldn't have to be said, don't use ChatGPT. But when a new technology comes out like that, I think there's a part of due diligence. I mean, maybe I'm being patronizing, but clearly a lot of those students need to be told not to take shortcuts. They shouldn't, but evidently they did need to be told that. Yikes. Aurora, thank you so much for the super sticker. You're very, very kind. Thank you ever so much. Next article, we have got German police have found. I was wondering whether to put this into repatriation, but I didn't. I felt like it belonged here. I mean, it's 6 one after the other. This, I suppose, because it's ancient coins stolen from a German museum that have been repatriated to a German museum. So it's not a repatriation specifically, it's a theft. Okay, that was my logic. German museum have found lumps of gold that appear to have resulted from part of a treasure being melted down. They are hoping to find the rest of this treasure that was stolen intact. It was stolen from the museum. 4 suspects have been arrested on Tuesday over the November 22nd break-in at the Celtic and Roman Museum in the Bavarian town of Manching, in which 483 Celtic coins that were discovered in 1999 were stolen. These coins all dated to around 100 BCE. The authorities said that DNA found on an object outside the museum, which they wouldn't identify, led them to the suspects, 3 of whom they linked to a series of previous break-ins in Germany and neighbouring Austria. This robbery appears to be the alleged gang's first targeting of cultural treasures. The coins and a lump of unworked gold were discovered during excavations of an ancient settlement in Manching, and authorities have said they're considered to be the biggest trove of Celtic gold found in the 20th century. So, were they mounted? No, I don't think they were. Okay, so this is the concern about when items of more historical value than physical value are stolen. The fear is that you'll melt them down. This is what I was talking about with the stolen Mary Queen of Scots rosary. The anxiety is that it's going to be melted down. Best case scenario, it was stolen to order, because otherwise you get stuff like this happening, which we don't obviously want. We want things to remain intact and hopefully to be reclaimed at some later point when they can be. So we've got a recent discovery made in Turkey. They have found dozens of terracotta figurines depicting ancient Greek gods, men, women, and animals. These artifacts are over 2,000 years old, and they were found in the ancient Greek town of Myra, which is now called Demre in Turkey. Some of these figurines still had paint on them. had inscriptions providing archaeologists with a view of life in the region in the 1st and 2nd centuries BCE. We are told these figurines give, quote, rich clues about what existed in the mysterious Myra under a thick silt layer in the 1st and 2nd centuries BCE. They were excavating, the team involved was excavating parts of a 4th century Roman theatre, and they suddenly unearthed a second, smaller theatre beneath the Roman remains. Researchers found a massive collection of terracotta figurines scattered amongst the remains, along with a Hellenistic theatre. It's as if the people of ancient Myra were resurrected and ran through the time tunnel altogether and came to our day. My husband just said Barbie's come a long way. Lol. There is an almost unaccountable number of ancient Greek and Byzantine archaeological and historical sites in Turkey, many of which attract hundreds of thousands of millions of visitors every year. Many of them are landmarks not to be missed by any travellers to Turkey, and they should not be missed by Greek travellers, since they are incontrovertible evidence of their people's long, rich history and contributions to Western civilization. However, I think if you are Greek, I wouldn't necessarily make a big play about how the land you're standing on in modern day Turkey is Greek. I would not labour that point if I were you. Just friendly advice from me to you. Next up is an article that I recommend you go and check out, because I just wanted to show the pictures. Detectorists finds in Wales declared treasure. These are a group of finds. Yeah, heading Felem, heading back to those finds. Yes, that's the fear, that the historical value of things like Mary Queen of Scots rosary, like those gold coins, that the historical value of them means they are far more valuable than the base metal of the cost that you would get from melting them down. But if somebody is an opportunist rather than stealing to order, they might not know that, and they might try and melt it down. So we have got this is a collection of various detectorist finds found on by different detectorists at different points. But we have got, I'm going to go from top, oh god, my left. So your left of the screen too, I believe. I'm bad at directions. We've got 3 coins up there. These are nobles, and they date the reigns of Edward III and Richard II. Below it, we've got a 17th or 18th century ring that is engraved with the phrase, oh, I've made that typing too small, be constant to the end. We have got a hair ring. We have got a gold ring that dates to between 1550 to 1650. We have got a medieval brooch. Yes, so the very, very bottom is a brooch that with the circle with the thing through it. That's a brooch. These are some, and then middle, those 5 coins are Tudor. Beneath it, the ring we see there is a late medieval finger ring. Then the big one, we've got an Anglo-Saxon, probably double hooked fastener to hold clothes together or to adorn themselves. And then we have the last on this side, for me, the right hand side, we have got a Roman silver coin hoard. Sorry. So lots of the One Ring, a Tolkien reference, possibly, although older than Tolkien. Maybe Tolkien was inspired. So do go check out this article, because it talks all about the different finds and what's happening to them. If it's declared treasure, then it essentially it means that the person who's found it has to allow national institutions to buy it for the good of the nation. If the money can't be raised, if no agreement can be raised, then they can either keep it or sell it privately, is my understanding. Napkin ring, Paige. Napkin ring. Hard stare. Hard stare. A half shekel has been found from a revolt against the Romans 2 millennia ago in a desert cave. They were searching for more of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and inspector surveying desert caves found a rare half shekel from 66 or 67 CE, which is the first year of the Jewish revolt against the Romans. This currency was part of an underground Jewish economy during the rebellion's 4 years. Very interesting. So this coin dates to an incredibly specific time, which is so unusual for a coin. It's engraved with the words Holy Jerusalem using Hebrew script rather than the vernacular Greek of the time. This is a defiant nod to Jewish identity. Quote, for almost 200 years, people made the pilgrimage by foot and used silver coins for paying a tax called the half shekel tax. And apparently these coins were used for tax in the temple and also the internal economy during the revolt. These coins were minted by Jewish rebels and they bear a depiction of 3 pomegranates. The other side of the coin features a chalice, similar to what could have been used by the priests in the Holy Temple. The words half shekel and the letter Aleph, denoting the first year of the revolt against the Romans. Quote, apparently there was a rebel who roamed the desert cliffs. He dropped a precious shekel there, and luckily we were able to find it 2,000 years later and bring it to the public. This project, where they're looking for these Dead Sea Scrolls, has been going on for 6 years. In that time, they have recorded over 800 caves and found thousands of significant finds. Were it not for this survey, the coin may have been found by antiquity looters and sold on the antiquity market for the highest price offered. Prior to the revolt and the decision to mint their own coins, early Jews paid the half shekel tax using coins minted in Tyre in Lebanon using fine silver. During the revolt, the shekel, half shekel, and quarter shekel coins were created from silver and bronze, inscribed with the year of the revolt. Archaeologists found another half shekel from this period in Jerusalem and the West Bank last year. Archaeologists from Bar-Ilan University discovered an additional half shekel dating from the second year of the revolt against the Romans, just south of the West Bank town of Duma. The Israel Antiquities Authority announced the coin's discovery just before Israel enters into the Jewish fast of Tisha B'Av, which begins Wednesday evening. Quote, the find of the coin at these times is a reminder for us of what happened in the past, teaching us the importance of working towards unity. An elite Roman man has been buried with this brooch. It is a crossbow. Isn't it fabulous? This has been found in Wales near a Roman villa. A skeleton of a man buried face down, adorned with a silver crossbow-styled brooch, hobnailed shoes, and a sword. This brooch, we are told, marks him as a person of high position in military or civil administration. It's the first of its kind that's ever been discovered in Wales. As he was found face down in a prone position with large nails at the back of his neck, shoulder, and between his feet. This unusual posture and the presence of nails suggests that he was bound in strong restraints before burial. This burial, along with 4 others dating from the mid-3rd to late 4th centuries, was found during a road improvement project, once again, near the town of Barry in South Wales. If anyone watched Gavin and Stacey, then you will be familiar with Barry Island. The burials are thought to be related to the Witton Lodge Roman villa, which was discovered 50 years ago. As implied by such a burial position, it's thought he's not a slave or typical criminal. This is a rock-cut grave with a wooden plank border rather than just being thrown into the pit. The sword between his legs is the sword that was discovered between his legs is the long, straight Spatha variety, which had replaced the gladius in the 3rd century AD as the preferred infantry weapon. The silver crossbow brooch, the first of its kind to be found in Wales, identifies him as a person of high rank in the military or civil administration. So what's going on with the burial then? Analysis of the man's bones and teeth revealed that he suffered from mastitis, a bacterial infection at the time of his death. He was about 21 or 25, between 21 and 25 when he died. I think that's mastitis or a mastoid. Isn't that a swelling in the bone behind the ear? Or commonly. I say that because my mum, when she was a little girl, had a mastoid behind one of her ears, and she was one of the first children in the hospital to be treated with penicillin, as opposed to there was a surgical treatment for it before antibiotics, and that would leave the child unable to hear in that ear afterwards. So, yeah, she was one of the first children to get penicillin, so she didn't lose her hearing, but she had so much penicillin that she couldn't have it for the rest of her life. So this prone position of the burial is notable, along with the discovery in a nearby grave of a decapitated individual whose skull was placed at their feet. Similar burials in Roman Britain raise the possibility between prone and decapitated burial, sorry. While atypical burial patterns have been observed in Europe during the Roman period, there is no single explanation for their occurrence. This Roman soldier, buried face down with his regalia, remains an enigmatic figure who may never be fully comprehended. It is interesting, however, that he was buried prone, but still with his regalia. The find, we are told, raises more questions than answers. Hopefully questions that will be explored further. We're staying with Rome. Ancient Roman baths in an excellent state have been discovered. This has been found in the western central part of the Iberian Peninsula. This is Merida. It's the home to a UNESCO World Heritage Site that is the remarkably well-preserved remains of an ancient Roman colony, Augusta Emerita, the predecessor of the modern city. These baths, we are told, are perfectly preserved, complete with decorations such as marble plaques, mouldings on the cornices, paintings on the walls, all of the underground structures. At present, the pool that usually accompanies these types of sites has not been found in the excavated area, but it's not been ruled out that it could be found in the future. The site of the discovery lies in an archaeological area that was originally located outside of the walls of Augusta Emerita. There are homes, funerary and industrial spaces, as well as two notable houses, the Casa della Torre del Agua, House of the Water Tower, and the Casa del Anfiteatro. The Castle Amphitheatro was a large residence, including a courtyard, kitchen, and mosaic floor, depicting scenes of the grape harvest. The discovery of the public baths came during an archaeological investigation launched by the consortium around 6 months. These excavations are continuing. Staying with Rome. This is a very Roman-based episode this time. But look at this. Glassware has been recovered from an ornate glassware from a Roman shipwreck. This is the Capo Corso II shipwreck that was found in 2012 at around 50 meters beneath the sea. The ship is dated to around between the end of the first and the early 2nd century AD. It was seemingly transporting a cargo almost exclusively of glass in both its raw state and thousands of worked brown tableware. Data has been found, and they have deployed a remotely operated vehicle called Arthur. So this is again new tech. Arthur is a remote operated vehicle prototype that can go down 2,500 meters. It can shoot high-def video, ventilate or vacuum sediment, and recover artifacts in situ with a specially mounted claw. It's found various glass objects, including bottles, cups, and bowls. There's also found 2 bronze basins and several amphora. The National Superintendency for Underwater Cultural Heritage announced, quote, all archaeological materials will be transported to the laboratory of the National Superintendents in Toronto for scientific analysis, for the characterization of biological degradation, and for restoration. The team hope further study of the objects will reveal details about the ship and the route it travelled on its last journey. It's thought that it might have come from a port in the Middle East, maybe Lebanon or Syria. Given the exceptional nature of the wreck and the result of this first survey campaign, the researchers of both countries hope to be able to start a broader multidisciplinary project in coming years. A little puppy found during an archaeological dig in Oxfordshire. It was found at the site of a villa believed to belong to a wealthy Roman family. The dog is one of the smallest to be found in the UK, and it thought that it was a much loved pet. Looks very like a dachshund, doesn't it? As we call them a sausage dog, as you call them in the US, a wiener dog, I believe. Hannah Russ, a zooarchaeologist who analysed the remains, said, quote, while it's possible this dog was used for hunting, not with those silly little legs, it wasn't. Bless it. We know that Romans and other parts of the empire had begun to breed and keep small dogs as pets. The fact that this dog was so small and had bowed legs suggests that she probably wasn't bred for hunting. It makes far more sense that she was kept as a house dog, lapdog, or pet. Oh, so cute. It's said that this villa would have been occupied by a relatively wealthy Roman family who ran a farm with an assortment of working animals, including hunting or herding dogs, as well as this tiny canine. Also found was a brooch, which I believe this gentleman is holding here in this picture. And as well as that, a copper bracelet. They're going to be displayed for the first time at Earth Trust in August as part of the Clumps Go Ancient Festival. Earth Trust said it would include a pop-up exhibition featuring, quote, never before seen artifacts from the dig. So if you get a chance to go and check that out, do let us know what you think of it, and tell us what you see. In a statement, quote, from the Iron Age communities who created the hill fort that's now Castle Hill, and the Roman families who later lived downslope, to the farmers and tenants who manage the land today, this area has been shaped by human use and intervention throughout the ages. Nero's Theatre has been found under a garden of a future Four Seasons near the Vatican. This is going to be a luxury hotel, and they have found the ruins of Nero's Theatre. They were excavating deep under the walled garden of the Palazzo della Rovere since 2020, and this palazzo, which takes up a city block, is home to the ancient Vatican chivalric order that leases the space to a hotel to raise money for Christians in the Holy Land. The Governor General of the Order of the Sepulchre of Jerusalem, Leonardo Visconti de Modron, confirmed during a news conference that the incoming hotel chain was the Four Seasons. The findings have been hailed as exceptional. They provide a rare look at a stratum of Roman history from the Roman Empire through to the 15th century. They found 10th century glass goblets and pottery pieces that are unusual because so little is known about this period in Rome. In addition, archaeologists found marble columns and gold leaf decorated plaster, leading them to conclude that the Nero's Theatre, referred to in text by Pliny the Elder, an ancient Roman author and philosopher, was indeed there, located at the site just off the Tiber River. Officials said the portable antiquities would be moved to a museum, while the ruins of the theatre structure would itself be covered again after all studies are completed. Yes, all of these sort of those sort of they're like little like terriers or ratter dogs, but as with all, I think most of the kind of pedigree breeds, they do have troubles, don't they? No, so cute little puppies. Vicious though. The smaller the dog, the angrier. I got sent this one quite a lot. Evidence of necromancy. Apparently, in a cave, they found oil lamps, weapons, and human skulls that suggest that the Toming cave was used for necromancy ceremonies in the late Roman period. This cave is also known as the Cave of the Mother of Twins. It's a cave complex in Israel's Jerusalem hills. There's been a oral tradition that's attributed the cave spring waters to have magical healing properties and powers of fertility. The cave was first studied in 1873. There have been more recent studies in 2009 uncovering 120 intact oil lamps. These oil lamps were deliberately deposited into narrow crevices in the cave wall beneath piles of rubble, while some of the crevices also contain groups of weapons and human skulls. According to a study, the artifact deposits were used for necromancy ceremonies that took place in the cave during the late Roman period, and the cave may have served as a local oracle for the dead. Placing such find in cavities was used for sorcery and magic in caves as possible portals to the underworld. According to the study, quote, the purpose was to predict the future and conjure up the spirits of the dead. Because more than 100 ceramic oil lamps, but only 3 human skulls have been found so far in the cave, we hypothesize that the primary cultic ceremony focused on depositing oil lamps for clonic forces, perhaps as part of rituals conducted in the cave to raise the dead and predict the future. Mate, that is a spectacular. That is, I know. I can hear my husband giggling downstairs. That is exactly the degree of dad joke that he loves with every fibre of his being. Well done. Well done. A thunder floor. Sounds brilliant. Found in pre-Hispanic Peru. It's believed essentially that this is a sounding dance floor that's thought that it was designed to create a drum-like sound for a thunder god when stomped on. It's been found by archaeologists in Peru. Quote, we know that in pre-Hispanic Andean rituals, dance was a big part of proceedings. I believe this specially constructed platform was built to enhance the natural sounds associated with dance. I believe these open platforms would have been used during the pre-Hispanic period as a stage on which to venerate the nearby mountain gods. Sorry. This would likely have been accompanied by drums and possibly Andean wind instruments. They realised that the platform was built to enhance sound when they began to excavate it. They discovered that the platform had been dug and then infilled with specially prepared fills and surfaces to create a percussion effect. So there's 4 layers of camelid guano interspersed with 4 layers of clean, silty clay. They think that up to 26 people could have been on this platform dancing in unison, making a large thumping sound. The sounding dance platform is a fantastic find, and it shows that aside from instruments, the human body and the landscape could be employed musically. It also brings past sound to life, especially given that the past is mostly silent and lost to us. Thank you. He's brought me water. He's a good egg. Thank you. Yes, I would like another cup of tea as well. It's a good egg, that one. I mean, someone's poop. Llama poop sounds about right to me. A sword has been found in the water, and it's thought that it was dropped by a crusader. It was found off the coast of northern Israel. And it's thought that it was lost overboard during a naval battle between crusaders and Muslim residents some 800 years ago. When it was found, it was encrusted with shells, sand, microorganisms called a biogenic crust. This had preserved the sword for centuries. The heavy layer of shells and sand made it difficult for experts to examine the sword more closely, and so the Israel Antiquities Authority partnered with the Sorenk Nuclear Research Center to use cutting-edge X-ray radiography technology to penetrate the crust and create a simulation of the sword. During early research into the sword, the crust cracked, exposing and splitting a large part of the iron blade. Researchers decided to continue studying the sword using non-invasive processes only. I think so. I think Jamie knows that he's now Mr. Dr. Cat. I think he's aware. When he introduced himself to me, he's like, "My name's James." And I was like, for about a day, I went, "Okay." And then I just went, "But you're not, are you? Your name's Jamie." Which was what his family called him, but he tried to shake that off till he met me. There was no escape. The archaeologists believe the sword was almost certainly lost overboard during a battle because the blade was slightly bent and the crossbar, which is part of the handle, had been hit out of alignment. So essentially, it fell into the water during a fight. No, it was found by an amateur diver having a little fun trip. A bloke. Being expensive, swords are usually found within a scabbard. This one was not. So it's thought that it was out of its scabbard, so it probably fell into the sea during a battle, maybe with its owner. The warrior may still be there, in fact, it's thought. Very few swords have been found on land because iron was an expensive material, so the sword metal would be repurposed into another tool. It's thought to be a European sword with a 12th century blade and a 13th century pommel or handle, which is not uncommon as a thing that happens. A medieval monastery in Germany is being given the archaeology treatment. This dig is being directed by the State Office for Heritage Management and Archaeology in Saxony-Anhalt. And they have found the monastery buildings, and they've also found numerous finds that help to expand upon everyday life there. They have been carrying out research on the site, and the project intended to bring the historical site, which has now been pushed to the periphery, back into the focus of an interested public. The excavation this year was led by Professor Dr. Felix Biermann of the State Office for Heritage Management. Quote, excavation pits of stone looters and foundations clearly trace the plan of the church and the monastery building. Particularly impressive are the more than 1 meter high, he's bringing tea, he's such a good egg, foundations of a large, love you, late Gothic building with powerful buttresses, which was attached to the south wing of the cloister, probably the monk's dining room or refectory. The building, which is thought to have been built in the 15th century, had a wash basin integrated into the wall with a drain to the outside, testimony to the high hygienic standards of the convent at that time. There was metal detector work done on the site as well, and they have found finds from the 13th to the 16th century. It bears witness to everyday life, the economy, trade, prosperity of the monastic community. They've got brass book clasps from the library, a writing stylus, ceramic and animal bones, knives, horseshoes, various tools. They've got a sickle, a high medieval spur, as well as a lock fragment. They've got cloth seals made of lead that are evidence of a large-scale trade. Weapon parts such as the pommel of a 14th century knight sword and a short slashing weapon of the following century are also discovered. And we've got here a hoard of 4 gold coins, a guilder. There's these, and they're all guilders minted by various different people in the names of various different monarchs. Gold coins are incredibly valuable. This is a small fortune that's thought to have been hidden by a member of the monastery in an acutely difficult situation that did not end well. Or at least bad enough that he couldn't come back and get it. It's thought that these were hidden during the German Peasants' War of 1525 when rebellious farmers stormed the monastery. So this has been left there. So one can only imagine what happened to the monk or whomever hid them. There, I think, are more things to be discovered about this, and I look forward to learning more about it as time goes on. We have got a medieval pocket sundial that's been found. This has been found in Germany. It's believed that this ancient clock comes from the late medieval period and belongs to an order called the Brethren of Common Life, which is a religious community established in the late 14th century in the Netherlands. This Brethren eventually spread throughout the Netherlands, Germany, and Switzerland. The Brethren lived in an ancient monastery building from 1527, which is located in the upper section of Marburg, which is where this was found. Unsurprisingly, there aren't many of these sundials left. And this particular sundial opens to reveal a hole, which would have been for a stick that would have marked the shadow of the sun. So you have to essentially, it's flat pack. To identify the object, archaeologists compared the rare find with a similar one found by archaeologists in a ministry in Switzerland. We aren't sure exactly why the sundial was found in the particular area that it was. They are digging at the monastery's probable rubbish dump and pulling up much that we need to examine first in order to identify it. The excavations are continuing on, and they are hoping to find more rare stuff, unsurprisingly. Anything else recovered could provide additional clues to this time period and perhaps the sundial's origin. I'm reminded of that. There's a great bit of VT. It's available on YouTube, and David Attenborough is walking with Her Majesty the Queen. I want to say it's up at Balmoral, but I'm not 100% sure. So they're walking in the grounds, and David Attenborough notices that a sundial is beneath the canopy of a tree, so it's never going to get hit by the sunlight. And there's just a really lovely interaction where the Queen goes and sort of essentially asks for help as to point out what fool put this here. And she assumes, of course, probably rightly, that the sundial has been there for longer than the tree, and the tree has grown in the way. It was Buckingham Palace, was it? Thank you very much for that. You remember it. It's a very sweet moment of video which just shows two people having a lovely chat. So yeah, that's whenever I think of sundials, I always think of that. This is a close-up of this coin. I should have put this with the other link, but I've flipped it. So yes, this should be a slide up. So we've got a close-up of that coin from that uprising, that 1525 uprising. So there it is. That's one of the 4 gold coins in a close-up there. Isn't it a fabulous thing? Was it? Apparently the sundial was moved shortly after. Well, do you know what? It would have been cool if they'd left it there. So they could be like, this is the sundial. That would be a site of pilgrimage, particularly if the king plans on opening up Buckingham Palace more, which is the rumour. But who needs a clock when you have a sundial? Me, I do. The face of a woman who died in a shipwreck in 1628. This is the Swedish warship, the Vasa, which sank in 1628. 30 people lost their lives on board. One of 20 human skeletons recovered from the Vasa has not only a name, but a face. She has been dubbed Gertrude. Blue eyes, blonde hair, and pale skin. Was 25 to 30 when the ship sank on its maiden voyage in 1628. Initially, she was thought to be a male, and she had been nicknamed G. In 2006, that G became Gustav. But more recent analysis have shifted the speculation by looking at the pelvis. Osteologists posited the skeleton was in fact a woman. But it wasn't until Armed Forces DNA Identification Laboratory in Delaware analysed the remains that researchers could be sure that G was a woman. The team announced its findings in April. Differentiating Gertrude's face from Gustav's proved challenging because, quote, she does show some typical male features like a heavy jaw, prominent mastoid process, and some more indecisive and androgynous characteristics. One wonders how this individual presented in life. I wonder how this individual presented in life. The size and surface of the skull's mastoid process, a bony protrusion behind the ear cavity, influenced the shape of its owner's ears. Gertrude had large mastoid process, meaning she likely had big ears. So a 3D printed model of the skull was used, as well as a CT scan, and then, of course, they get an impression of how thick the flesh would have been on the front, and then they rebuild the facial structures from plasticine clay. The DNA analysis guided the depiction of Gertrude's hair, eye color, and skin tone. Her backbones, which suggest a life spent lifting heavy objects repeatedly, so sailing, I would say, shaped his portrayal of her facial expression, which she's set, isn't she? An impression of hard work. I agree. Gertrude needs something to wear, and so they began matching pieces of clothing found in the shipwreck to the victims who may have worn them. A jacket was recovered near Gertrude's remains, along with a woolen hat designed to be very high in shape and dyed in the clearest red colour. Both were recreated for the reconstruction. And he said that the artist said that he was deeply touched when a curator placed the hat on the model's head, reminding him of the solemnity of Vasa's first and final voyage. I think I need to look into this. Christina of Sweden was androgynous. Interesting. I think that obviously in the current climate and narrative, there's lots of talk about what can and can't be judged by looking at bones or anything else, and how, everything can be easily visible. It's far more complicated than that, as are all things when it comes to the lived experience and truth of a life, and what remains in the earth or on the seabed is not the sum of anyone's parts. And clearly, in identifying this individual and shaping this individual and reconstructing this individual, it wasn't that simple. Even with DNA analysis, there are still questions, I think, about presentation and appearance and the truth of the life. The first archaeological dig at Sleaford Castle for 160 years. This is a castle that was once visited by Henry VIII, and it's hoped that more will be found out about this castle in Lincolnshire during a 3-day excavation. They are looking at soil samples, digging trenches, and trying to determine the layout of this ruined castle. Quote, "We have this wonderful asset for the town of Sleaford, but very few people know it's there. Let's do something about it. This castle was built between 1130 and 1135 by the then Bishop Alexander of Lincoln. This castle hosted Henry VIII and his fifth wife, Catherine Howard, in August 1541. So that final, only procession for her. We're told that, quote, Lincolnshire doesn't naturally have a lot of building stone. In the 16th century, when the castle fell into disuse, the stone was robbed out and probably used to build bits and pieces of the town. This dig, which is taking place in collaboration with Sleaford Council and the Archaeological Project Services of Heckington, is expected to finish on Friday. So I look forward to seeing what we might get out of that information. I will update you if and where it appears. Very like. No mention of them in the article. Maybe that's because we will see it on the YouTubes soon. Oh no! Don't ask me geography. Can somebody answer Brian's question? I will always admit this. I have an vague understanding of geography in what I like to call the keyhole of England. That is the M25 down to Brighton. I have a rough estimation of where things are. Everything north of the M25 is the north, as far as frankly, anything outside of the keyhole of England is the north, as far as I'm concerned. Ah, Scarlett, yes, it is in the East Midlands. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. There we go. Thanks very much. Very good. Thank you, Hive Mind, for filling in my absolute failing knowledge of geography. I didn't do geography at school for anything past about the age of 13, and then it was just advanced colouring in. So it's not my fault. It is, but I just... Oh. Now Jamie sent me the Jean-Luc Picard. I know. This is fascinating, but also, my goodness, that's dedication to experimental archaeologists. Czech experimental archaeologists have done a 1-month voyage of the Aegean Sea in a replica prehistoric vessel. That is for real. A month. They've done they voyage across the Aegean Sea. This is their third exhibition, completed this summer, and the exhibition is called the Monoxylon 4, coming from the Greek word monoxylon, a short version of monoxyle, a simple vessel chiseled out from a single tree trunk, the oldest type of boat. The hope was that it would shed light on the nature of agricultural colonization in the Mediterranean 9,000 years ago. This is a replica. There are 20 paddlers and a helmsman on a 500-kilometer route divided into 17 sections. They started on the Greek island of Samos, which is off the coast of Turkey. Then they navigated various islands before reaching the Peloponnese Peninsula in Greece. They did make overnight stays on some of the islands. This is legit. This is, oh boy, it's a replica of an 8,000-year-old Neolithic boat that was discovered near Rome in 1994. It weighs nearly 3 tons. It's 11.5 meters in length and 1.2 meters in width. It's made from the single trunk of an uprooted oak tree that grew for about 300 years in a local forest in East Bohemia. It's larger than the wooden boats they used in earlier expeditions. The expedition presented numerous challenges. You could say that again, including dealing with extreme heat. There was an 11-hour upwind crossing to the island of Amorgos, with sweltering temperatures and scarce winds between Melos and the Peloponnese. Blimey, O'Reilly. 100 hours of paddling. The team conquered the entire 500-kilometre route at an average of 5 kilometres an hour. Blimey. The aim of the expeditions, quote, is a practical verification of the abilities of simple wooden vessels, monoxyls, in the spreading of early agricultural populations through the Mediterranean. Experimental archaeology has such an incredibly important place in my heart, in my scholarship, in my understanding of the worlds that I talk about. I think it is so incredibly vital to the work that people are trying to do. I think it's just brilliant, and good on them. And I would love to take part in experimental archaeology, not that one though. Yeah, I believe it could be fitted with a sail, but then when you've got no wind, when you are becalmed, you've got to start rowing. Terrible times abroad. I mean, I hope not, because if that went over, you're gonna have an absolute job and a half to get it back the right way up, aren't you? When you consider how much it weighs. Yikes. Right, last piece of new news. This is another article that I'm going to direct you to go and have a look at, because I'm not completely sure how I feel in light of it. I mean, I sort of am, but at the same time, I'm willing to hear thoughts. So this is about the Mutter Museum in Philadelphia, and I know they have lots of body parts on there because Caitlin Doughty from Ask a Politician has done stuff there, and I know loads of important research is done at that museum, in that facility. I also know that it's a place that people who subscribe to alternative lifestyles like the goth culture, etc., frequent, because it speaks to them and it's important to them in that way. And I fully understand that. I still stand by the fact that human remains should not be for public curiosity and consumption. That is where I stand. There are some very interesting points and arguments raised in this article. I really thought hard about it, and it still hasn't changed my mind, but it may change yours, and that's fine. We can, where we are now currently when it comes to human remains in museums, when it comes to repatriation, like, stuff is happening, footsteps are being made in the right direction, I believe, but we are still very much at the discussion and debate phase. And so having different points of view is vital to understanding where people are coming from. And I do understand why people are like, no, these things need to be on display. I get that. I disagree, and that's fine, but I have definitely thought about it. And now we're going on to my little peeing boy bell comes out. Forward comes the ding dong section. And this one is not actually about any phallus or yoni. It's a ding dong like the last ding dong we talked at. Yeah, why does a name, why does it have that name? Why does it have that name? I need to do some research into it. So we're going on to Ding Dong. Prepare to be enraged, because it's happened again, friends. A 17-year-old Swiss girl has defaced Rome's Coliseum. It's the second time it's happened in a month. I look, working in heritage settings, something has happened to people in the 2 years of COVID. And people have not remembered their outside manners. And there is some absolutely wild behaviour that happens in heritage sites. In the years before, when I worked in these locations, like so take for example Hampton Court Palace, where you have the Abraham tapestries in the Great Hall behind a rope, but not behind glass. These are the Abraham tapestries commissioned by Henry VIII in celebration, we believe, of the birth of Edward, the future Edward VI. Said to be among the most, perhaps the second most valuable thing in the entire royal collection, which includes the crown jewels. So we are talking some priceless things. Never had I ever heard about somebody deliberately trying to touch the tapestries. I'm sure it happened, but it was never talked about. Since the world has reopened, more than once have I heard about that attempt. More than once. People have forgotten how to behave themselves. So, a guide, watched this happen, was recording this girl. After a few seconds, the group applauded him, the guide. I'm not sure applauded for what he was saying about guiding or for videoing this individual. He said to her in English, quote, "Do you want applause?" The girl understood that she had then ended up in the crosshairs of those who protect art and turned away towards her family. He said he told the girl's parents that what she'd done was illegal and claimed that they blew him off with a gesture of annoyance. Well, that's why she's the way she is, because mummy and daddy need a kick in the bum. Apparently, the parents told him, quote, "She's just a little girl. She wasn't doing anything wrong. She's 17. She's not. She's not 2. And let me be clear, I am in possession of a 2-year-old. One comes with me places. Let me be clear. My 2, nearly 3-year-old would never even come within a whisper of a soupçon of being able to perpetrate something like this. The guy took a photo of the whole family and told authorities, who then questioned this family at police headquarters. Good. An example needs to be made at a certain point. Twice in a month. Twice in a month. My husband said that my son would lick it. He would try, but I would stop him because I parent my kid. The teen could face up to 5 years behind bars and a fine of €15,000, which is $17,000 for damaging cultural property. Do it. Yeah, I mean, something needs to. It's utterly wild to me. I think I genuinely think if you're caught doing something like this, I get perhaps the international ramifications of imprisoning a 17-year-old. I get that. What I do think is that there should absolutely be a fine to pay, a large, hefty fine to pay that makes the news, and then there should be a deportation and a lifetime ban on return to the country. If you can't play nicely in the sandbox, you don't get to come to the sandbox. Like if you come and like poop in my sandbox, you don't get to come in my sandbox again. The throne of coronation is absolutely covered with graffiti, but it's not recent. The walls inside the Tower of London in the cells are covered in carvings and graffiti. Hampton Court Palace is covered in carvings of people who were clearly bored while standing around. But that is stuff that happened. I mean, the people who made those carvings aren't alive anymore, and now we see them as being of historical interest. But then maybe that's the point. Maybe we should let people carve into our historic monuments because they did in the past, and in 500 years it'll be a moment of curiosity. I don't feel that way. Maybe I should reassess. Oh no, no, because if someone had caught them, the choir boys or whoever had caught them carving into the throne of coronation. They'd have got clipped on the ear because they used to wallop kids then. Not that you should. It's not illegal here for some absolutely foolish reason. Anyway, on to events and exhibitions. We're winding down. So, the Museum of Science and Industry in Chicago has got the Pompeii exhibition that is going into its final weeks. In fact, it's running until in September the 4th, 2023. They were. That is how creepy Seeps, as I like to call him, managed to get his lips on her. Yes. There's a lot of desecration. That's how mummy brown paint became a thing. And while people started putting mummy dust into their wine, we know better now. We know better now. There is a warning with this that the exhibition does contain themes of natural disaster and death, including a display of body casts. There's a gallery within the exhibition which may be bypassed, contains adult content, themes, and artifacts which may not be suitable for all guests. As I have done previously, this is linked in both the upper pinboard and also in the description. But on top of that, you will notice that there's a little kind of in the description box and also on the upper pinboard beside the link to this. You will also notice that there's a link to accessibility information. So if you require accessibility, if you have access needs, then do check that out and make sure that you can do what you need to do. So it's all linked there. At the Met Museum, we have Grounded in Clay, the spirit of Pueblo pottery. This is fabulous. This looks absolutely fabulous. So this opened just on July the 14th, and it's running until June the 4th, 2024. So as always, if you are checking this stuff out, because I'm not going to get a chance to go to either the Pompeii exhibition or Grounded in Clay, because I am here, please do let us know what you think. Last, by no means least, Hardwick Hall, which I need to go to, has done a 24-year restoration effort on a set of 16th century tapestry. These are 13 panels, measuring nearly 20 feet tall and more than 230 feet long. And the last time they were all displayed was 1999. This restoration project cost £1.7 million, which is around $2.2 million, and it required more than 5,470 hours of conservation, stitching, lining, and construction. That experts spent 2 years conserving each individual panel. I'm going to do my best to get to Hardwick Hall, so I will take some pictures and share that. And yes, so I've got the link to Hardwick Hall, and I've also got the accessibility information there too. So that is what I have for you today. Once again, I mentioned it at the end of the last news live stream. I am with my lovely friend Philippa from History After Dark and the assistance of the gorgeous Catherine from History After Dark. There is going to be a British History Tours tour of Shakespeare's Stratford-upon-Avon. It's Shakespeare in Stratford-upon-Avon tour, and it's on her website as a coming soon event. It's going to be launching very, very soon. So as soon as it does launch and tickets are available, places are available, it's because it's very small audience, because you want to have it as personal experience as possible. But if you are interested, if you can make it for the weekend, then do see if you can book as quickly as possible, because there aren't very many spaces, and it will be a weekend with me and Catherine in Stratford talking about Shakespeare, going to visit some really interesting and important Shakespearean places, and on one of the nights taking in a play at the RSC. That play TBD, because we don't know what's on yet. But it will be something good because the RSC is fabulous. So, and when that, as soon as that is properly launched, trust and believe it will be all over my social media where you can follow me. I am obviously here on YouTube. I am on Instagram, Threads by Instagram. I'm still on Twitter, or rather X, but it's making me sadder every day. I'm also on the TikToks. So do come and find me over on those places. Make sure that you are subscribed here. Please do hit the bell icon. Please make sure that you share this post. Share also my channel. Loads of comments if you're watching live. Thank you. Come back and just drop one in the regular comments as well. If you're watching the playback, let us know whether you are live crew or playback crew. I really appreciate it. The more engagement videos get, the more that my content gets shared out. And thank you all for spending 3.25 hours with me. I'm going to go and have my dinner now. I'm quite hungry. And I hope wherever you are in your Monday that you have a lovely rest of your Monday and that your week is also fabulous. I look forward to speaking to you all in my next video. Do take care of yourselves. Bye-bye for now.